Oh yeah, Darren. Every time.
Sound effects.
Switch off something.
I gotta stick my thingy off.
What?
By the way, we're online. It's 7:10. Smack on, right? We're gonna get started, man. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna make Andy a doodah firkins, right? So he can do the effort when we got a bit of the old thingamajig.
There's nobody else left to come on, is there?
Yeah, Judith.
Oh, Judith, yeah.
Well, I'm wearing this because we got Putin joining us today.
Oh, lovely.
He's a nice man.
Does he watch your YouTube channel?
Well, since you upset Neil Oliver that time, I haven't been on since.
Oh,
I can't believe it. You know, that's traumatized me. I had a message off him after that. It's just like, it's like, oh, hello, Neil Oliver. No wonder he didn't turn up again.
Well, I have bought his book. He should have been really pleased.
Don't you think loads of people have bought his book? Do you really think other than to the rest of us and the rest of the world, that I don't know what I'm saying. Look, guys, I know you're all concerned about the rash on my back. Yeah, I did see. Shut up, Rog. I did see the doctor and the urologist on the Wednesday and Thursday last week, right? And the urologist confessed that she hadn't seen me in Downton Abbey 3. I told you, you know, she was a bit upset. She upset me. Right. The back problem, right, is probably to do with a gastric problem. That might be to do with something else. So they gave me 4 sets of drugs. So my back is clearing up. I've still got stomach doodahs, and I've got a load of tests that I need to have done. But on a serious note, we're hoping it's not to do with the BRCA1 gene that runs in the family. So we'll keep you up to date. On a lighter note, Roger was asking earlier on. He was saying, you know, could it be linked to my sheep? Right. It cannot be linked to my sheep because I do not get intimate with my sheep, except there have been occasions, and this is a confession, Roger's confession. There was a few occasions when it was really hot in the summer, and I would be diving out to feed the animals. I would have nothing on, and as I'm going into the little shed, some of the sheep would just go between my legs and poke their head up, and I would just be quite shocked. That's it, really.
Too much information.
That really was. And Michelle told me never to tell you that, but I just have.
don't dangle.
Right, so tonight we got loads of stuff, but it's called Roman rollocks. So talking about rollocks, Roger.
Oh,
There's a cat there called Marley. Look at him, he's lovely.
pussy, nice.
Right, Rog, have you got any news for us?
Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
Oh, me? No, I haven't.
Hang on a minute. Can I just make an observation? I say, have you got any news, rollocks? Roger.
What?
And then you say, who, me? How many Rogers have we, right, how many Rogers have we got? I'm struggling with this. Margaret.
No, I haven't got any news for a change.
Oh, God, thank goodness for that. It gets a bit onerous, really, doesn't it? I'll
remember that.
I just, you know, I remember in the past, Margaret would get really upset with the terrible things I'd be saying about her. And on one occasion, she said, I think I'll leave your classes. And I begged her to stay, and she's been here ever since.
Yes, good.
I did bribe her, but that's what?
Well, is that why I got the card?
Oh,
part of the bribery, the saucy card.
There's more coming, right? There's 16 in a set altogether, but I would say, I actually said to Andy, I bought a load of Roman postcards off the internet, right? I thought, brilliant. Half of them were written on. So I said to Andy, why don't you get a sticker and put it over the writing and send them out anyway? So that's what I'm going to do.
I've got a whole collection of them.
Yeah, but nobody cares about you, Rog. Will, anything you want to say?
Oh, an old bum full.
No, nothing for me. I'm just going to listen for a while.
Yeah, but
No, you won't. No, you won't. Just listen.
hang on, I was just about to say that. That'll make a change. Right,
I
Trina.
did say for a while.
It's never going to happen.
Well, okay, let me add. If I have something that I should interject with, I will interject. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Good.
Most of us don't even know what that word means. In Rumney, right? We wouldn't know what that word meant. Right, Trina.
No news. No.
Right, okay. I did have a conversation with my optician about a screw that fell out my glasses. Wasn't impressed. But I thought I'd check that in because me and Trina like swapping notes about glasses. Right, anything you want to say, David?
Oh, thank you.
Anne. Do you
Yes,
know what?
I was
Anne's got a tree
attempting to
growing
watch
out of her head.
something about.
What?
I was attempting to watch something about. Oh God, I don't know.
Well, that sounded interesting, love.
I've forgotten the name of it. I forget names of everything these days. Stonehenge. I was watching something about Stonehenge, and I thought, and they were talking about how the stones are got from different places, and then they're talking about the singing stones, and it sounded like, I mean, you complain about the rubbish with it. I think it was the most rubbishy junk I ever watched, and it looked like it was going to be interesting, but I'd warn people off. It's just awful.
I would say it's not as bad as the absolutely fabulous film, right, which me and Michelle watched a few years ago, right? It's the only film I've ever managed to get through 5 minutes, and we thought, right, we just took it out, ripped it, just put it in a bin. It was the worst. It wasn't as bad as that. The absolutely fabulous film was terrible.
Well, this was terrible information, and it would be so, if people believed it, it was like witchcraft almost, about societies that had done it before we were, and gone out and all died out.
Yeah.
Being clever than we were, all that nonsense. Well, I
Who
didn't.
was the presenter? Can you remember?
Alice Roberts. No, it's absolutely terrible, Anne. We completely agree with you there. Just burn it.
Yeah.
Burn it all. But by the way, if you ever turn up on a Wednesday evening, never mention the name Alice Roberts because Goff gets really upset. He can't stand the woman. Right. He don't like her. He don't like her. Well, what it was, he went to this conference once, right? And he asked a question. She didn't answer it. And since then, he's hated the woman. It's a bit like Neil Oliver, isn't it, Margaret?
I've got her book as well.
What? Who? Margaret's?
I've got Alice Roberts' book as well.
Don't say you'll be banned from Wednesday if you mention that. You'll be burned to the stake. Talking about witches, Michelle will be here in a minute. Right, Andy.
No, nothing this week, I'm afraid. Sorry.
Right. I got some complicated noggins to get across tonight, so we're going to get straight to it. I got so many images, I've forgotten how many images that we've got. So, unfortunately, when I put the images on you, it duplicated them 10 times. So we got hundreds of them. Right. So anyway, what I'm going to do tonight, I was sat there the other day, minding my own business, lying in bed, feeling sorry for myself. And I thought, Roman Sahara Desert, is there a lost province? And that's exactly where we're starting today. But then we're going to go to the translated script of Julius Caesar's book 4 and book 5. And not to be reminded that I'm in the next Young Sherlock series, but you know that anyway. I just, my agent said, just make people aware, right? Just make people aware that I'm in it. So
What is it?
I bet. Okay, Roger. Right. I'm playing a lunatic in a lunatic asylum in Young Sherlock. Okay, and apparently, I was extremely good at it.
Yes, I imagine. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Talk. Oh yeah. Oh, good. You know, matron, shut your face. Right. Okay then. Do you know it's actually come up online as Roman rollocks on
Oh no.
It has on YouTube. It has. It's there. Right. Okay. So we're going to get on to this now. Roger, shut up. I'm trying to find the images. There's a cat
Oh.
there. Right. Okay. So so we got all that stuff there. We got all that. Oh my God. Look, there's loads of it. It's just, oh no, it's terrible.
No.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Helicopter.
There we go. Roman Britain. So we're not starting off with we're not starting off with Roman whatever. We're doing the Sahara Desert first. Right. That's what we're doing. And I just thought what I'm doing is going back to Ebbsfleet. And we've got a little analysis of two bodies that were found at Ebbsfleet, but we'll be doing that at the end. And I do start off with something right from Bill. So what we're going to do. And by the way, I just thought that was the view the other night, right at 12 o'clock at night. And there's two of my sheepsies. That's Erica on the left, and that's black thing on the right, Edris. This is beautiful, isn't it? And that was 12 o'clock at night. That's how light it was. Amazing. You couldn't make it up. Oh, sorry, you don't want to look at that. Not that one. Right, okay. Right, okay. So, I was thinking, hang on a minute. I was thinking there were some images from Bill, right, which I can't find. Where's Bill's images? Well, basically, Bill had been to Exeter, right? And he's got bits of Roman wall that I wanted to show you, but we're not going to do that first. We'll do that later on. Right. So what it is, right? This thing about Africa. I sat down and thought about Africa, right? There are no penguins in Africa. Other than that, I thought, what about the Roman province? The lost Roman province in Africa. That's basically what it's called today. Lost Roman province in Africa. And it got me thinking. I thought, right, okay. In other words, I was looking for a totally unknown, fully fledged lost province like Atlantis somewhere in Africa. But the answer is very unlikely. It's very unlikely. However, all the grey stuff there, right? All the grey stuff where there's roads and sort of, oases. Yeah, there we go. It's likely that maybe, right? Maybe there's loads of cities lost, right? So in other words, when I'm asking this question, is there a lost Roman province of Africa? The answer is no, right? But there might be hundreds and hundreds of cities, right? Forts, roads, regions, plazas, statues of Lloyd George, mausoleums, all sorts of things, right? Which have all been swallowed up by the sand, right? So all this is absolutely possible. So this is the thing that I was really intrigued by. And whenever we see a map of Africa, Northern Africa as part of the Roman Empire, it doesn't really show a lot. But this is really detailed, as you can tell. Yeah. So when we think about Northern Africa, we sort of think maybe Carthage. There's Carthage found there. We go down to the Libyan deserts, obviously Egypt a little bit further off the screen, right? But lots of that grey stuff there. There are probably loads of forts and cities that are lost, right? And a word that we will be very familiar with is the frontier that goes into the desert known as the limes, Limes. The Romans had a word for boundary or frontier, that the Romans this side and the barbarians the other side, which is basically a frontier known as the limes. So, and we'll mention that a lot as the months go by. So, what Rome officially counted as Africa, right? The Romans were very meticulous about their provinces. We know that their African provinces were really important to the Romans. But one of the things, as I was doing the research into this, right, is that where you've got forts in the middle of desert today, where you've got sort of the remains of villas in the middle of deserts today, that was originally lush and green, right? And actually, off the screen over on the left there, going over to Mauritania and all that type of landscape, right? there's lots of green areas, right? There's lots of sort of it's not just all sand, by the way, and that's the point. This is the thing. This is the whole point. Now, when we look at that, we're looking at Africa now. This is really interesting. That word on there, the Garamantes people, right? The Garamantes people. Now, there was a whole kingdom where today there's nothing but sand. Now, excuse me, but if you're going to have a kingdom which has roads, cities, and towns, and all the rest of it, which is now sand, right? That says it all, because it's quite likely that you could extend the boundary of Rome, right? Quite a number of miles into what we know as the sandy Sahara deserts today. Without anyone shouting out, about 4,000 years ago, much of the Sahara Desert was in fact green. And it's long debatable what caused the abandonment of the Sahara Desert to sand. Some people believe climate change. Oh God, David Bellamy, I mentioned it. I'm really sorry I mentioned that one. Some people mention that the Sahara Desert, there were lots of natural fires and the trees didn't come back. Lots of people have said about Sahara Desert, it was down to human interference. But we're not doing that today. It's just a few ideas. So when we look at Africa, it's just like, oh right, it's not that purple, is it? But we can look at loads of maps of the Roman world, and it's a lot bigger than that, right? And what we've got the Parthian Empire over on the right there. We've got the Kingdom of Kush. We've got the Kingdom of Aksum. Remember the Aksum lecture, which is Ethiopia. So there's all that stuff, right? So many stories about this landscape. Back to the question: is there a lost kingdom? Is there a lost world in Africa? Why are there forts in the middle of nowhere? They're forts in the middle of nowhere because they weren't in the middle of nowhere at one point. So the Romans were very meticulous about their provinces. We know the names, governors, taxes, and borders for some of the places, right? For example, we've got an idea of some of the sort of provinces within Africa. For example, Africa Pro Consularis, which is basically where the Carthaginians were. Okay, we sort of go over to Mauritania. Now, this was really big for the Romans. It was actually really lush 2,000 years ago in Mauritania. There were loads of trees, green grass and stuff, but it's still there today. Lots of it today, right? And also not forgetting to mention, you've got Caesarea, which is Caesarea, and you've got over on the right, you've got Egypt, Egyptus. So this is all really, really interesting stuff. So we want to take you into the deserts, really. And my mind today is taking us down the path of Ireland, right? Is taking us down the path of Scotland. Well, hang on, Carl, what are you on about now? Right, what I'm talking about is that when you do think about the Roman world, right, the Romans might put a line around it, but they never went there, right? They may have claimed thousands of acres of sand as part of the empire, but then nobody lived there, right? But this is all really good stuff to get us started. So when you think about Egypt there, Caesar Renaica, you talk about Africa Proconsularis, you think about Mauritania, think about all these areas. These are core imperial territories of the Roman Empire with paperwork to match. So obviously we're thinking about the stuff south of here. When we think about from Egypt all the way down to Mauritania, right? We're thinking about a really well-governed landscape, but obviously there's stuff to the south. Now, we're thinking about the Garamantes people as the Berbers, for example. We're talking about these people with their own kingdoms. This is one thing that we're missing. Other kingdoms that existed south of the Roman world, but we're not missing them, are we? We've got the people. We've got the people of Kush. We've got the people of Aksum, where modern day Ethiopia is today. And when we look at the wider map of Africa, right, there's so much that we're still trying to learn about Africa, because unfortunately, one thing I do know about Africa is that the African archaeologists are really studying for funds to really bring out this story of Africa. So what I mean by that is that if you've got we've overstudied the Roman Empire, we've overstudied the Parthian Empire, Egypt, all these things, right? So people of Nigeria, for example, people of Ethiopia, forget about Sudan. I think people have got more important things to worry about in Sudan. So when we try to understand this world, it's biased, right? Nothing in the south because nobody's written about it. Nothing in the south because nobody's done an archaeological excavation work properly, right? So what's really happening is the African archaeologists trying to change that. And whenever I've done videos, which is separate from you guys on a Tuesday and a Wednesday on Africa, I usually get African archaeologists saying, "Thank God a white Western archaeologist has actually taken notice of what's going on," which is great, which is only a little bit more support to what's happening. Right. So what we can think of, what we can sort of gently look at images like this as they sort of fleet into our minds, right, is all of this stuff is lost there in the deserts of Africa, right? So when we think about, for example, Beaugest, yeah, we know about Beaugest, don't we? We used to watch the films when we were younger, you know, black and white films about Beaugest. We think about you joined the French Foreign Legion, did you, Rod? So basically, when you've got shut up, Rod. When you've got films about the French Foreign Legion, they're usually filmed with backdrops of areas that had actually been former Roman cities and towns, which you don't actually see, right? So
We're good.
yeah, they were good, Roger. We've had enough of listening to you. But anyway, the point is when we think about when the word limes of Tripolitania comes up, that's sort of the lowest areas that we know on the going onto the deserts, the Sahara Desert of the archaeology, right? This is the buffer world, but there's so much further south. And when you think about it, Roger, this desert-like stuff, Roger, was actually green at one point. Why build this stuff in the middle of nowhere when there is nothing? And there's a clue to this. When you're actually seeing that lots of these things are made of mud brick, right? That means that there was water and soil to make the mud brick in the first place. And if some of these mud bricks have been heated, that means that there were trees, which are not there today. So forensically, this is evidence in itself to say that the landscape 2,000 years ago was excessively green or greener than it is today. So this is all really important stuff, right? So what do you think about that, Roger, so far?
Excellent, because I've wondered about all that.
What, Roger,
the desert and all the rest of it, because people had said there had been people living in the desert when it was, well, not greener, when it was all. Probably have to go back a years or something, but at one time there was more going on there, that people were living in it because of the vegetation and stuff, like one huge oasis rather than bits. So it's quite a tale. I don't know, the archaeologists might have studied more and more, but there's a lot going on there that we missed. Pity we can't do digs, but you get drowned by sand, but still.
But
missed.
But I'm glad you're curious, Roger, because there's 2 points about this image in front of us. It's not only made by mud brick, right? But these are tall, big buildings. And if you've got tall, big buildings, you need to fill them with things. Tall, big buildings need timber, right? Tall, big buildings need material to be placed in there to be storage, like food. So all of this forensic stuff tells us a lot more about the world than meets the eye. because when, for example, you think about the stories about ancient Egypt, I think Anne's story early on was really interesting. The same person who Anne was talking about Stonehenge being made by aliens and all the rest of it, and she thought that was absolutely nonsense, which she's completely correct to think that, right? But it's the same people actually still think that there's no way the pyramids of Giza could have been constructed because there's nothing there now. There's not really enough to support people, but there was in the past. And also, when you think about the flood in the River Nile, there is. However, and the other thing as well is when we're thinking about this world, where we're thinking about this lost world, is the important thing that going over to Egypt and thereabouts, these were bread baskets to the Roman Empire, right? These were supplying, right? There's another point. There's no point having this landscape with forts and towns and all the rest of it. You can't collect taxes off people who are selling sand, right? You can collect taxes off people who are selling food and meat, right? The only way you're going to be able to do that is if you've got green landscapes in the first place to do it, right? So one thing that we're actually thinking about is going into this type of world, and obviously these are stone structures rather than mud brick, right? So obviously, where's the stone quarries? They're not too far away. They're going to be stone quarries there, and obviously this landscape tells us a story. It tells us a little bit of a story that is long lost. Now, I just thought I'd check this in here. I mentioned the word limes earlier on before we go on to the kingdom of the Gamantes people in southern Libya. So the Roman limes represents the frontier line of the Roman Empire at its peak around AD 100, or actually AD 117 to be precise, extending over 5,000 kilometers from the Atlantic coast north of Great Britain, across Europe to the Black Sea, and from there to the Red Sea and North Africa, before returning to the Atlantic coast. These are remnants, and here we go, these are remnants of built walls, ditches, forts, fortresses, watchtowers, and civilian dwellings. Some elements of the line have been discovered during excavations, others reconstructed and destroyed. So we do see this, but when we look at Africa, it's not really clear. It's not really clear what's going on. And when you think about it, this is a nice villa site. This is in Mauritania. Now you're thinking, why are villas built? The reason why villas are built is that they're usually locations where you can collect taxes. How can you collect taxes if nobody's bringing you any grain? How can you collect taxes if nobody's bringing you any meat? How can you collect taxes if nobody's bringing you any marble or wood or any minerals or anything like that? So again, lots of these sites tell us that there's a lot more going on. So one of the things I want to do now is just think about these Gamantes people, right? So what we're talking about, the Gamantes people, there they are. We got a lost kingdom. Now, who were the Gamantes? Now, the Gamantes could have actually been conquered by the Romans at one stage. They could have actually been a client state. Really interesting stuff. So there we are. So we're going to read the text about who the Gamantes actually were. So the Gamantes, if nobody's ever heard of these people, which is probably likely that none of us have, right? Not sounding patronizing, but this is one thing that we're not taught in school. We're not taught anything about African history at all, which is shameful. We're told about Egypt, but that's not even taught properly either. So these Gamantes people, Gramantes, which is basically southern Libya. So what kind of civilization would it take to establish the first desert settlement, not founded around a river system? As history tells, it was the people of the Gamantes who occupied the Fezzan region of modern-day southern Libya approximately 100,000 years ago. Now, these Carthaginians would have been aware of these, definitely. The Carthaginians would have been aware of these, 300 years BC, right? Or 350 years BC. They probably traded somewhere with the Phoenicians, somewhere along the line if they could get inland, right? So 1,000 years BC, which is 3,000 years ago, and commanded a prosperous empire until roughly the coming of the Christian and Islamic hordes around AD 700. But have you ever heard of them? Here, you explore the often untold story of these people, another forgotten civilization from antiquity who leveraged scientific knowledge in their expansion and continued existence. So what we're saying is these are like the Nabateans. They're able to control water. They're able to make the landscape lush. They're able to grow trees. They're able to have cities, roads, temples, burial customs, and all the rest of it. But we never hear about them. We never hear about them because we're obsessed by what's going on with Rome, right? So obviously all the pink stuff in Africa, fine. Forget about the Kingdom of Kush, which is the brown stuff there on the right, south of Egypt. Forget about the Gamantes people. And look, there's a kingdom in Morocco as well on the western coast of Africa. Nobody ever talks about them either. The Romans were well aware of them, which was part of the Mauritanian world as well. So the Gamantes, their capital city was known as Garama, which is a place which is surrounded by desert today in southern Libya. These are referred to as the Desert Kings, like the Desert Kings of Kush, south of Egypt. They had cities, irrigation. They actually had a field army. Ringing any bells? Rome traded, fought, and negotiated with them. Roman forts pushed hundreds of miles into the desert to grab bits of Garamantes territory. Why would they build forts in the middle of nowhere where there's no way of supplying them with water or food? Things in history are really not told us in the way that they should be told us. Now, some archaeologists do call this a shadow province, not named but managed. So was this actually, going back to what I asked at the beginning, a lost Roman kingdom in Africa? Are these Gamantes actually eventually conquered by the Romans? The Romans like to conquer everything else. Do we know that? Don't we know? That's the thing. So the thing is, when we look at all this, Gamantes is smack banging in the area of, where all the sand is, right? And here's another little bit. The people who would become the Gamantes are thought to have descended from the Berber tribes of North Africa, with strong links to the Saharan pastoralists, basically cow farmers, further south across the Sahara. Pastoral living is characterized by adaptation to the land and its produce, dependent on animal produce and herded cattle. There's a clue to that. The clue is that you can't have cattle without water. And you can't have cattle without things for them to eat. You can't have pastoral farming involving cattle needing lots of milk if there's nothing for them to live off. So that gives us a clue to there's something not quite right. And as you know, guys, you all like me looking at things that are not quite right. And that's exactly what we're doing today. So actually, don't do it now, William. But your homework now is to go and look at your stuff, right? From your aerial Google stuff and try to find some lost cities in the Sahara Desert. That's your homework for next week.
Right,
So,
Carl, just one quickie.
we knew. Hang on a minute, Margaret. You were right. You knew he was going to interfere with us. Go on, William.
One quickie. On Hathi Trust, there are quite a number of texts on the Garamantes. They're in French. One or two are in Latin. 1824 is the earliest I see so far. I will have a look, see if I can do some translation, find some points, see if I can send you something next week.
Oh, there you go. See, Margaret was right, but well done, Will. He couldn't avoid it. He just couldn't avoid it. Right. So again, I know lots of this is random, but okay, picture this, right? You've got stone walls, right? You need quarries. You need stonemasons. You need to feed them. You find these things in the deserts of Africa, right? And this is the very point I'm mentioning. You don't get wars in the middle of nowhere because of nothing, right? One of the things that we do find with African archaeology, particularly in regards to the Sahara Desert, 1 minute there's a town which is from the Carthaginian period. 1 minute there's a town from the Gamantes people. 1 minute there's a Roman city, and the next minute it's gone, right? Because sand moves, right? But remember, 5 to 4,000 years ago, the Sahara Desert was green. It was lush. There was water sources there. Something happened, but we're not doing that today. Not even you will. So the one thing about all this is desert preservation is weirdly excellent. And that's the thing. So, we do know that Rommel lost 2,500 tanks and across Libya and Tunisia. Some of them will never be found, but in 1,000 years' time, somebody's going to find a tank preserved in a Roman city. Job done. And there you go, Anne. It's fact that the Romans went back in time and supported the Romans to conquer Africa. Don't go there. Oh my God, that would make a great film. Where can I hire a tank? Oh, I can do that. Excellent. We're going to do it. There's some more research for you, Will. You can do the research on a film script for that one. Job done. So entire towns buried intact, roads erased from the surface, forts swallowed. And that's the point. That there's another point to that as well. And this goes on to Will again, the next bit. One of the things, look at that there. You're going down the road and suddenly, wow, you've got these mausolea in the middle of nowhere. It's like an oasis. An oasis, I can't bloody say it after that. And the next minute they disappear. It's like those Carry On films. You've seen that Carry On film you had with Phil Silver and that. Yeah, you know the one. Yeah, that's the one. Carry On, Follow the Camel. That's the one. But anyway, so anyway, the point with all of this is that if the landscape isn't maintained, right? The Guamantes kingdom could disappear in decades, right? If the water sources, if things are not maintained, whole towns and cities can be swallowed up in decades, right? This just hasn't just happened in Africa. It's happened in regards to the Parthian Empire, right? It's happened in regards to lots of landscapes. You know, we've when we look at Mongolia, the Gobi Desert, for example, there's lots of sand and stuff there. And let's chuck something else in as well. We could think about Australia as well. You know, we could think about whole sort of weird things happening there, right? So one of the things that we're talking about with the archaeology is it disappears in a different way. There's a downside with African archaeology being covered by sand dunes, right? It's inevitably very difficult to date because there's no layers. So one minute there's a load of sand, it's covered a city. The next minute the city's uncovered again and it's moved away, and you know all of these things. And Michelle's going to put the kettle on and make us a lovely cup of tea now as well. So the point is that archaeology in Africa is very different from archaeology in Britain, right? But then you could argue back at me. You could say, what about on the East Coast, whole towns and cities being washed and eroded into the sea? That's a different type of erosion. You never see those towns and cities again. The difference with Africa is you will see these towns and cities again. They will appear as oases in the desert. By the way, there's the next Oasis concert is coming up. Did you get the joke there? Never mind. Anyway, the point is you've got these mausolea, and one of the things about mausolea like this is that you don't just find them in the desert for no reason at all. They're there for a reason. They're alongside a road. So mausolea like this are alongside the road, right? Easy. There's loads of these across sort of the hidden province of whatever of Africa, whatever you want to call it, right? So one of the things that we have done is that we're using satellite radar that can see through the sand. There you go, lidar, aerial lidar, right? That can cut through the sand, right? And occasionally, what we do see is the media reporting that a road has been found leading into the African desert. We don't know why it's going there, but it is, right? And suddenly, oh my God, we can see the template of a town or a city, right? So there's what is happening. I think we mentioned a few weeks back about there's a lot more study into road networks and to try to understand where roads are going, and that's something that has been one of the great mysteries, not just about Roman roads in Britain. That's another talk altogether. But Roads as well. When we look at civilizations in Central America and South America, right, we see roads going into the Amazon rainforest for no apparent reason. Where are they going? They're not just built for no reason at all, right? We can think about the Inca. Why are roads? It's the Inca people. We've got whole lost cities. There's lost city of El Dorado, the city of gold. Where's that going? All of these are traceable by roads. In the difference with Central America is taken over by jungles, right? That it's the reverse of what we got in Africa, right? But there is somebody else. Let's get a breath. There is somebody else who's actually done some research really recently. And this is a place called Hirza. But one of the things that people have been looking at is Africa has seen periods where 1 minute it's green, the next minute it's sandy, next minute it's green, next minute it's sandy, right? And there's always that theory that there are whole lost civilizations in Africa. We're finding them which is correct, which has to be correct, right? I can't say who they are, right? But we're getting this in the Amazon rainforests, right? And that's the point. So what we're looking at here, this is on one of those beautiful cut tombs, right? This is natural. This is stone, right? Quarrying stone. You don't just put stone in the middle of nowhere. So when you look at this, you've got an idea. You've got flowers on the left. You've got a bird there, which could be anything really. That could be like a chicken type bird. You've got something like a palm tree there. When we look at these things, when we look at archaeology, when we look at these indications, it all helps us understand the lost map of Roman Africa. So looking at something like this, we're seeing bits of history. This is in modern day Libya, right? And bet your bottom dollar, I'll give you a little bit of a secret, Roger, right? My granddad served as an aircraft engineer in Africa. And then he served in Burma, right? He got the Burma Star and everything, right? And he actually served in Tunisia, right? So he followed the retreat of the German and Italian troops through to Tunisia, right? And lots of these people took photographs, and they studied the archaeological sites as the Germans were retreating. And this is one of the lost histories of the Second World War. It would make a brilliant book to record the photographs that soldiers of all sides took, looking at ancient ruins. And one of the things I'm going to say there before I lose my track, right, is some of these ancient ruins that the soldiers were seeing in the deserts of Africa and taking photographs have not been seen since, because the sand dunes have moved again. So those photographs are the only record of some of the sites that these people saw in Africa in the Second World War. Mark my words. So again, seeing these things, seeing these bits of archaeology to create something like that, you're not going to create something like this. This is not a fantasy. This is real stuff. These are associated with Roman forts. These are associated with settlements, definitely Roman archaeology in Libya, Algeria. And one thing that we do get rather interesting, Michelle's getting more and more obsessed with stopping the car on the side of the road to record mileposts, right? But in Africa, right, you've got mileposts just sticking out the sand, right? And they're saying X amount of miles to somewhere that we don't know even exists. We don't know what it is, right? These are really interesting. The milestone might in 4 miles down the road there's an oasis, right? So these wells, the systems supporting thousands and thousands and thousands of people. So the desert highways linking Africa to the sub-Saharan trade. Now, there's a big point to be made here. If you haven't noticed, right? If you haven't noticed, and we're looking at that there, all of these localities there, in Arabic, for example, and you're thinking, there's loads of faces you. You know what's going on. You know what's happening here. One of the things that we miss. This is Tripolitania, for example, the province of Tripolitania. And one thing, the red line is indicating the limes. And you're thinking, hang on a minute, that's a bit weird, isn't it? What the hell's going on there? The weird defensive frontier there, you know, this whole stuff is being still mapped out. It's really confusing. But when we think about the Silk Route from Asia, going through Asia, we think about sort of starting off in Japan, going through China, Mongolia, Afghanistan, eventually ended up through the Parthian Empire, and eventually stuff getting all the way over to Britain, right? What about stuff coming from Africa? Who actually studies that? You know, who actually talks about that? This is the point. Where do you actually see people talking about material coming from sub-Saharan Africa? It does exist, and forget it. It's not. It's not slaves. You know, there's other stuff going on, right? There really is, right? There is other stuff going on. So again, looking at these sort of images from earlier on and looking at all this lost archaeology. So going back to the original thing, the sort of takeaway from this to sort of understand what is really understand what we're really trying to say here, is that, you know, are we thinking about something that's completely lost? No, it's there. It's under the sand, right? It does exist. There is something there, and there is something to be really deeply studied, right? So you could say Africa's big roam beyond the map, and this is what we're talking about. New things, new bits of archaeology to actually study. The takeaway thing about this is that there's going to be so many more things that we will find out over the years. And looking at that, look at the stone door there. Love it. Love these bits of detail, right? So just because they're not actually, just because certain things are not well documented, doesn't mean to say that the kingdom of the Gamantes people at one stage could have actually been part of the Roman world. It's just that so much has been lost. So when we talk about, for example, the documentation in regards to Julius Caesar's work, books 4 and 5, where he talks about you know, the invasions of Britain in the year 55 and 54 BC. That's all we've got, right? We're lucky to have any documentation of this stuff at all, but it is there. You know, it is there. So if we go back a little bit, so we just bumped into one of my Roman Britain images there. So we'll just go back to this kingdom here, which is really important, right? So the Romans were very much interested in control, tax. They were interested into shaping the world around them. The Romans couldn't do anything without trade, and Africa is underestimated as a preserved route of information that could tell us so much more. So when you talk about these Gamantes people, you talk about forts, farms, water control, oases, and all the rest of it. And when you think about Mauritania, it was the same. We think about African Proconsularis, it's the same. Kyrenica, it's the same. All of these things are the same. So wherever you've got forts, wherever you've got cities, you've got a productive landscape supporting those towns, supporting those cities, supporting the landscape. So the Gamantes, the Shadow Empire territory, what is all this about? There's an archaeologist called David Mattingly of the University of Leicester. There's new research being undertaken where they're actually undertaking new surveys documenting extensive settlement and huge underground water systems. These are not scattered nomads. The Gamantes people, which Leicester University is telling us about, are engineering experts. They engineered agriculture. They engineered urban life. So by the time they got to AD 700, something had happened. Something had happened for their landscape to collapse. So when you look at just over on the right there, you've got the Nabateans. Nabateans were very, very good at taming the landscape, but eventually the Romans took over them eventually. So what we could understand about North Africa, the pink stuff in North Africa, the territory of the Comanches, anything left and right, we could be thinking about more unrecorded forts, more unrecorded watch posts, signal stations, road stations, fortified farms, villas, wells, cisterns. So all of these things, are bits of archaeology that help us rethink the Roman Empire, to get us to allow us to try to understand the Roman Empire in a different way. The Roman Empire is not what we're seeing on the map. It's not neatly covered maps like this. At times, there's no clear borders. What's happening in Africa, as happens in Germania, as happens against the Parthians, is that frontiers move. One minute Rome itself is friends with some kingdoms. Other times Rome is not friends with other kingdoms. So all of these things are there to be understood. Now, the Gumantes people, as we come to the end of this bit, the Gumantes people, this is the southernmost of the Roman world. We need to find more of their cities. We need to find more of their towns to understand these people. They could have been a much vaster empire than meets the eye. We know that they did trade in gold. They were very, very wealthy. Exotic goods. We're talking about slaves. We hear about them in some Roman diplomacy. There is some conflict. The Romans are involved in some expeditions against the Gumantes. And just thinking about how powerful these people were. Now, if we go back to, let's just go back to say maybe this, sort of have this in the background. So much is lost under sand. Desert landscapes change dramatically over time. It did in the times of the Romans. Sand dunes migrate, settlements are buried intact, roads disappear from view, marker posts disappear, water systems collapse and vanish. So without these people to be able to maintain the landscape like the Nabateans, everything collapses. So what we need to do, we need to think that there is so much out there to be found. So the takeaway from this is that Rome's power did not end at the map edge. And this is the thing, that is exactly the point. So when we talk about Ireland, when we talk about the Isle of Man, when we talk about Orkney, when we talk about Shetland, when we talk about Scotland beyond the Antonine Wall, we've got to start thinking of that very statement. Rome's power did not end at the map edge. Rome's power did not end at the Antonine Wall. Rome's power did not end at the Hadrian's Wall. It certainly didn't end when we're looking at Africa. We need to follow more of these roads. Who built these roads? Why are the roads there? The taxes paid for the construction of the roads. We need to think about more about where these hidden water sources are. We find the water sources, we find more of these cities. We find the trade routes. We find diplomacy. Was there much of a threat from people from Africa? So some of the questions that we can ask when we go over to questions, we will have probably a bit of an earlier break. Can an empire exist without formal borders? Big question. The answer is yes. I mentioned last week, for example, that the British Empire at one point covered a quarter of the planet of the Earth, right? But there were parts of Africa which we claimed as part of our empire that we never ever went to. Just think about the center of Australia. You know, it's full of Aboriginals, but, you know, there's, with great respect, by the way, right? We love Aboriginals. It's full of Aboriginals, but, you know, there was no British flag flying over most of it, you know. There are islands in the Pacific Basin, right? In the, and we think, well, you know, we claim to have those islands as part of our empire, but there's no flag flying there, right? We saw this in 1982 when, for example, the Argentinians claimed bits of rock, which apparently belonged to Britain. And in fact, British troops were never there. So all of these things are very relevant today as much as they were in the past. And key questions about this landscape, back to the Guamantes people again, back to this wonderful people, is they controlled the water. And when they controlled water, like the Nabateans, they were very powerful in controlling the land. And when we think about Julius Caesar, which we're going to go on to after the break, when we think about Julius Caesar, all of these things tie into trying to understand what the Roman world is about. Should we redefine what a province means in Roman terms? Was a province in Roman terms a place that they put a flag in the map and said that's part of the Roman world? So, you know, I'm not trying to push this down your throats, but when we look at maps of Roman Britain, maybe we should be colouring the whole of the British Isles in red, right? Because that's what some Romans thought Britain was. It was part of the province. It was all part of Rome. I think the people in Orkney and Shetland would argue differently. So, what does the word province means in terms of the idea of Rome? How much Roman Africa remains undiscovered? Really, really big questions there. Key questions to try and understand. But hopefully, I just wanted to give you this little bit of a world, right? But after the break, right, what we're going to do, we've got all of this stuff. We're going to look at this stuff, right? But before we have our little bit of a break, try and put some of this stuff into context, right? And there we go. Thought that would be better. Right, this is from a translation from 1869 of Julius Caesar's Deo Bello Gallico. And you know what we have about Julius Caesar's invasions, right, of Britain, right, is we have little snippets. So there's chapter 20. There's chapter 21 and chapter 2. So this is something that we'll send you some of the translations to this, and hopefully you guys pick this up. So we'll had some of the Latin stuff, and we translated it, and we've got some videos which have been sent to you guys. Thank you very much for Will. But this is making it a little bit more simple, right? So here we go. Book 4, chapter 20. Caesar, having learned these things from prisoners and having discovered the nature of the country, we're talking about Britain, and what harbours were suitable for landing, yes, Pegwell Bay, thought that the time was now come to make the attempt. But before he ventured to do so, he determined to get some information respecting the island, its inhabitants, their customs. I wonder if they ran around with Mary Lloyds at that time with weird horses' heads and stuff, and the nature of their country. For this purpose, he sent Caius Volosanus with a galley to reconnoitre the landscape. So Volosanus probably didn't do a good job, but he got as much as he possibly could. But there's 2 points with all of this, and the first point with that first chapter, there's more of it before. Obviously, there's other discussions, but this is the key stuff. So the point is that the Romans were aware of Britain for a very, very long time. The Romans had been aware of Britain for as long as the Carthaginian and Phoenician world existed, and that was 300 years before. We know that. You know, they're aware of tin, sort of various things that are actually going on, right? So we've had those discussions. The Phoenicians were playing stuff to the Romans, right? But the other thing as well is that when I'm reading that is that Julius Caesar was going over to Britain for a bit of a jolly, right? And the reason why I'm saying that is we mentioned the likes of Caligula last week, and Caligula builds harbours, he builds a fleet, he builds sort of legionary fortresses to invade Britain, right? Julius Caesar did none of that. Julius Caesar was doing it as a thing that the boys did on a Wednesday afternoon, and he was only here for a few weeks. Anyway, let's see what chapter 21 says. Right, here we go. So Volosanus, after exploring the coast for 5 days, returned to Caesar and reported what he had seen. Meanwhile, Caesar, having resolved to transport his army to Britain, collected ships from all quarters and assembled about 80 transports, which he thought sufficient to carry 2 legions. To these he added some ships of war as defence. He didn't know what he's going to come across. Volosanus gave him enough information to plan an invasion of Britain. So before we go on a little bit of a jolly and a little bit of a break tonight, because I'm looking forward to my donuts. We've got really greasy, horrible donuts with loads of additives, Anne, right? And by the way, Anne, we've been nicely eating some sour bread this week. Yes, it's making me feel a lot better. And by the way, I do feel a lot better today. That's life.
Good.
So book 4, chapter 22. The Britons, when they discovered the intention of Caesar, sent ambassadors to him to promise hostages and obedience. Caesar encouraged them and exhorting them to remain firm in their purpose, received their ambassadors courteously and dismissed them. So in other words, there's something really interesting with this, right? How did the Britons know that Julius Caesar was planning to invade? So you can imagine Volosanus, he lands at Pegwell Bay and he goes to the local pub and they say, "Oh, what are you doing here, Volosanus?" "Oh, well, Julius Caesar's planning to invade." "Yeah, all right then." And then he jumps back on his boat and he sails around the coast a little bit more. Where was Volosanus actually sailing? Right? This is really, really interesting. So again, well, enough of that now. I want to show you. I've got all this stuff here, right? Can you remember a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, right? Maybe Volosanus sailed around this bit and said, "Oh, that's the island. We'll land there. Job done." What can you do in 5 days? 1 minute you've got to sail over there. You've got to sail back. You've got to feed your troops, right? Maybe they all got drunk on a Wednesday afternoon, and then he went back to say to Julius Caesar, "Everyone's fine. The people are nice, and the women have got red hair." The thing is, we don't really know what was said to Julius Caesar, but Julius Caesar said that, there was this expedition that went out. What's going on? What is really going on? Oh, go on, because I got loads of these chapters to do. Let's just do another bit more of one of these chapters. Why not? So there we go. Let's go on to chapter 23, book 4. Having delayed some days by reason of unfavorable winds, he weighed anchor about the 3rd watch, and after proceeding about 7 miles, found the cliffs crowded with the army forces of the enemy. At which point we're going to take a break. So there we go. We're learning a little bit from this today, but that's life. So let's nobody give anything else away. So there we go. Right. Okay. So we'll do a bit more of that at the end if we get there. Job done. Right, so it's now 8:12. We started quite promptly today, so that's why we're starting a little bit earlier. So job done. Hey, Margaret, should we tackle Will first?
Yeah, go for it, Will.
Go for it, Will. Let's have it. And then
Right.
Oh, Judith joined us as well.
Okay.
Will,
Yeah,
I'm timing you. You've got 2 minutes. That's it.
right. Garamantes, Herodotus has a text. So that's 500 BC or thereabouts.
450 years BC. That'll
With
do.
his analysis of the Roman Empire, it's a translation, 1957, of his work in English. I'll have a look at it. There's about 600 pages.
Ooh.
There are supposed to be a couple of maps. I couldn't see any maps.
No, I don't want to see all that. No, it's too much.
No. I'll
go
let
on.
you know. I'll let you know if I find any references. But there are references to the other tribes that are certainly linked to them in that area. The one thing I'd say to you is this: climate-wise, high winds, traveling from west to east, blowing the sand across the Sahara, and you've got accumulations of sand of different colors, different qualities of sand, and as they drop at different times, you have different layering relative to the time period. So when you talk about archaeological, if you can actually analyze the sand grains based on where they were broken down
Oh, that's
over a
nasty.
period of time and go deep enough, you might be able to find some layers which would say this dates you to 100 BC, 500 AD, 28, whatever it happens to be. I think you would find that because the wind patterns would be consistent for a period of years. And we're talking hurricane type winds, because when you see the dust storms that occur across the Sahara, same as they do over in the Arabias, it's the same equation. There we go.
Hang on a minute. You can't just leave it there. Right, okay then. Will's just curveballed me there, right? He really has. That's just really nasty. We shouldn't have allowed him to talk on that next bit. Right, so when Flinders Petrie is in the Garda Desert, which is along the Nile, sort of a little bit further on down the Nile, past Thebes. Anyways, in the Garda Desert, and basically he come up with this idea of seriation. So obviously you've got really thick, compacted layers of sand, and there's no real determination of layers, right? However, Will's just kicked me with a little bit of a curveball because in a way, maybe completely, Will is completely correct because, different grades of sand and so on are going to blow differently across the desert. And there are going to be times where there's going to be vegetation that's going to be created in those layers, and there's going to be other deposits. So Will is probably completely correct. It's just that layers of sand are undoubtedly difficult to date. However, we're starting to see techniques when, for example, we could look at Sutton Hoo, which is basically sand, with some deposits to get a determination of reading the layers. So Will is correct. Thank you, Will. David, is there anything you want to say before? Yes, David.
No, thank you.
Okay, David. If you're staying with us or leaving us now, then thank you for joining us tonight, David. Right. Right. Okay, Anne, anything you would like to say?
Yes, two things. One, you told us quite a long time ago. I remember you were showing us pictures of people swimming in the Sahara when there was a lot of water around. A very long.
Stop! Because that was on the yeah, you are dead right. That was on the bout. That was south western Egypt, and that was on the border roughly between Egypt and Libya. So yes, go for it.
I remember that. And of course, what happened is people were there then, but with the sun coming and with what you've just told me, the people have disappeared. Obviously, they would do. But what's happening in Morocco at the moment? The Chinese have been working at getting rid of greening their desert, and they're doing quite successfully at it. And they've been working in Morocco. Now, if it brought people back, if it did, would that ease? Would archaeology be easier with having more people around or not? I was wondering how it would affect what you could find, or if it...
Right, okay, right, okay. Right, there's 2 points for that, right? The first point is put it in a box, right? With more people around, there's more humidity. Therefore, there's stuff hidden in the sand that's going to start to decay. Blah 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 blah. But obviously, that's going to meet the doorway where people can go in and study and look at the landscapes of, for example, Morocco. You're dead right, Mauritania, Morocco, that type of landscape. And we do actually see a new greening of the landscape. So all of that is completely correct. So obviously, and therefore, if there's more people around, there's going to be more of a need to study the landscape underneath their feet, right? So that is very, very true. And also, I think the other point with that is, I don't know if this was the point of what you wanted, but if you've got people in that landscape, they're able to make the landscape fertile, meaning if you're making the landscape fertile, you're actually starting to give it more life, more animals, and so on and so on. But there's one downside with all of this, that when humans are reintroducing themselves into a habitat, this is never going to be the same reintroduction into the habitat that was in the past, because all that stuff is gone, is disappeared. So you're reintroducing a new habitat, right? So how that plays out on being an equivalent into the past is not going to be the same as an equivalent in the past. Let me explain in a little bit more detail what I mean. A few weeks ago, I showed you some images of the land that we've got in West Wales, and we were cutting sods, and I said you can only cut sods to create sort of forts if the grass has been mown by sheep, blah blah blah. And I said, if you look at this landscape, everything that you see in its landscape has completely changed in 300 years. So the landscape is completely alien 300 years ago to what it is today. now you've got that played out in Africa on another completely different ball game, right? So in other words, what you're doing is introducing in Africa. You may as well be recolonizing the moon, because that's the only analogy.
I
Because
just thought,
yeah,
you're probably right. I was just thinking if there were more people there, they'd be more interested if they found something and would do more.
yeah. There's going to be more interest, but as I'm reminded by Professor Colin Richards of Orkney University, right? These are not ancestors of the landscape. They have got no historical connection with that landscape that is under their feet, right? And it's how to interpret that landscape from the past into the present day. And actually, there's one other thing as well. Is right. There's one other thing, right? Whatever's causing shifts of people in this present day and age, right? Wouldn't people be more happier to stay in places like Nigeria? I've got to be really careful what I'm saying now. Wouldn't people be more happier and stay in places like Nigeria to make it this rich and organic, enterprising, environmental mecca, right? Than to move to other places? Because without those people, those landscapes like Morocco and Mauritania are never going to be realized. And that's what's got to happen. That's really what's got to happen, because those landscapes have got to be made rich by people moving elsewhere. Those landscapes will never be rich again, and I think that's something that we've really got to see. And again, I think I managed to stay away from being overboard there, but I think back to one thing which I don't really agree with financially, but one policy that the Welsh government has is to plant trees, is to give millions of pounds to African countries to plant trees, to make those landscapes rich and green again, right? What is all that about? And that might be exactly what you're talking about with Morocco and Mauritania. Roger knows what I'm talking about. Roger knows exactly what I'm talking about. Right.
I think the Chinese and certain Arabian countries, they fill long plastic tubes with sand and they overlay them on sand in a lattice network. They
do.
put straw down on it, and
They
then
do.
they add earth to it, or the earth comes in from the windstorms, and then they put the plants in, which causes the greenery to make acres and hectares of green land.
But there's one problem with that. There's one key problem with that, right? Is that the archaeology will never be found. And that's the point that Anne was trying to make.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
But then again, right? Do we need to find all the world's archaeology? The answer is no. We'll never be able to find it all. I give you this weird distorted figure that only 0.5% between 0.1 and 0.5% of the British landscape has ever been archaeologically excavated, right? Or archaeologically known about, right? So we don't need to find it all.
Right.
That's a really, really good thing. Anne, if you've answered that, and Will's answered that. Anything else you want to say, Will? You've got to be quick.
Right. With trees,
quick.
When we take trees away, they stop the amount of oxygenization of the land in the areas where the trees are built. So what we have now is the major problem between South America with the deforestation of the Amazon. We've got a shift in the oxygen generating capacity in the atmosphere in a particular area. If you put trees in an area that has been sandy for 1,000 years, you're going to change the displacement of where air currents move, and therefore that affects your climate change. This one of the reasons we've got a lot of storms, tsunamis. The South America, you've got the deforestation. In China, you've got the carbonization of the atmosphere. Those two entities together at a par are in the millions and millions and millions of liters of displacement of air that is causing the present anomalies in terms of the climate, which is not necessarily archaeological. But anyway.
Hang on. You've had your say, Will, but actually Will's made a good point. Will's made a very good point, because it is archaeological. Because wherever humans change the landscape, they're obviously affecting somewhere else, right? So so say for example, we will look at the Julius Caesar stuff after the break. We got more data from whatever, and so we're obviously the Isle of Thanet is no longer an island, so all that land has been created, right? But if you go off on the East Anglia coast, that's being massively eroded away. There's cause and effect, right? So when you think about trees, this is a good point. This is a good point. Very dangerous point for me to make. But 2,000 years ago, it's likely that maybe up to a third of the tropical rainforest that exists today didn't exist. It was just a normal agricultural landscape, which we've seen plazas, roadways, we've seen temples, seen whole civilizations underneath the Amazon landscape, in the Terra Preta landscape, which is dark earth layer. So people could argue that, let's cut down more trees because they didn't exist in the past, but that's dangerous. However, things have changed massively, and we don't really understand as much about history as we pretend to know. Right, Andy.
No, I find it fascinating that we're starting to look into all these peoples from Africa, because there's loads, very civilized people from all over the place. But so I'm very interested in all that. That's great. Sorry, my seat's falling down. But a couple of little things that you mentioned earlier on. There are penguins in Africa.
I know there are.
And there was a garrison of Marines on the Falkland Islands as well.
No, come on. You really... Hang on. There was a garrison of Marines on the Falkland Islands, but some of the rocks that the Argentinians claimed, there wasn't garrisons.
Oh, no, there's nothing on some of them. No.
Hang on, that's what I meant. Stop being a tart. Yeah, go on.
No, that's it. That's fine. The more the merrier on the rest of it. Africa, love it.
Good. I've got to put my thing in the hole a minute. Hang on a minute.
I don't think you can say that live, can you?
Hang on, that was your interpretation, and I was wrong.
Oh, right. Fair enough.
And whatever you do, if you ever see Michelle, don't tell her that I told you about what happened with the sheep that time when I was naked in the field. Right, okay then. Drina, anything you want to say?
No, thank you. No, it's
right,
fascinating. Okay. Everything, yeah.
Good. Even the sheep. Good.
Even the sheep.
By the way, Judith looks like some kind of pseudo weird queen from a dodgy landscape. So Judith, anything you want to say?
No, thank you. I've only kind of been listening for the last 20 minutes or so, but no, very interesting.
Do they do that in Penclove? Because I'll have one.
Do they do what, sorry?
Do they do that?
Oh, the dressing gown. No, it's blinking freezing here. Blinking freezing, and I'm standing in the kitchen. It's even colder
it's
than
not
the rest of
my
the
problem you live up north, is it? Where it's blooming cold all the time. Tell you what, you Yorkshire people do nothing but moan all the time.
Okay.
Right, okay. Talking about moaning, right? Let's talk about the woman who does moan a lot, Margaret.
Do I? No, not me.
By the way, Margaret, right? By the way, Margaret, do you want to see, right? This is my new snazzy, really expensive, right? Shirt that I'm going to be wearing on sets, because I got look at that like nice green.
You'll be such a smart boy.
Hey, I got my booties as well. I got my booties. Oh, and I've got my costume dresser Stephen, who I'm looking forward to seeing. He looks after me. Stephen undresses me on set, so yeah, and I get into my bits. So there we go.
Aren't you lucky? What a wonderful life you lead.
Do you know when anyone says, why do you have a haircut? I say, well, I get paid to have my haircut. You must be bloody joking. I get 40 quid to have my haircut. Yeah, go on. I've forgotten what we're talking about. Anything you want to say?
Going back to your Africa, they've discovered on a lot of declassified Cold War era plans, and also Google Earth. Yeah. They've discovered recently 3 temporary Roman marching camps in somewhere in Africa. In Jordan. Yeah, there was a program with Bettany Hughes, and she
Oh, well,
actually
she's bound to say that
she,
Jordan's in Africa,
she
isn't she?
swooped down in a helicopter
Oh,
to have a look. She didn't have a lot of time because they were
oh
running
yeah,
out of
really.
fuel, and they found quite a lot of Roman artifacts.
I bet they did.
Hey, but I was also thinking,
Hang on, was she in her leathers?
she looked very nice. We'll say she looked very nice. Not as nice as you look in your new shirt, though.
Oh,
But
I'll tell Michelle that she'll
I
like.
was thinking about the trade between Africa and the Roman Empire. They did like their dates, didn't they?
Oh my God! Hey, I tell you what, right? The Tesco dates. Michelle bought a load for her dad, right, for Christmas, right? They were gorgeous. Were they Tesco dates? Oh, hang on a minute. Sorry, other brands. They were Sainsbury's. But anyway, the Sainsbury's dates. They
Well,
were
the
huge
Romans
things.
didn't get them from Tesco's. They would have got them from Africa. But I'm
Oh,
also,
and by the way, I thought I'd tell you, there's tigers in Africa.
well, I was going to say for the Roman games, they would have, did they have Romans going over to catch the lions in the desert and the
Oh no, they were
panthers?
tigers. They were tigers.
No, they got oh, I've written it down somewhere. They got lions
Right,
and
okay.
panthers, lions and panthers.
And
Oh,
leopards.
hang on. Barbary lions and panthers from North Africa, and from Egypt they got hippos, giraffes, and crocodiles.
Did you say Barbara the lion?
Barbary,
Oh, right. Sorry.
Barbary lions. So I guess the trade was quite big in exotic animals, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's true. Oh, and by the way, before we go to Roger, right? Before we go to Rog, right? I wanted to because I when people renew their membership for the year, right? They're gonna get a goodie bag, right? It could contain anything from first aid covers, weird things. So if you get a goodie bag in the post with a load of crap in it, it's from me, right? Right, Roger, right? Michelle's looking at me wanting. What's that?
Thinking about the life of
I
the
haven't had any donuts. Right, go on, go on.
the life of the Sahara, the ecology there. But I thought for the Romans and their history, there might have been more written about what they'd done in South Africa in the various writings of these historians over the years.
Yeah.
Because very often, if somebody was brave and did something great, they'd be a triumphant march in Rome, and they would have accolades, gifts, and all the rest. Because if they're exploring and opened up something, I would have thought there'd be more of that reported anyway, not just history. So that would have given a clue as to what they'd achieved in Africa.
But you do think about Septimus Severus, who was a black African, who became Roman emperor, who was father to Gaeta and Caracalla. So this is one of the things, Roger. This is one of the things you think about Africa, right? And you think about, oh, what's that got to do with history, right? Why would it have anything to do with the Roman Empire? It's just like a backwater, right? But it's not. And one of the things that I'm reminded of, which I think was wrong, right, was actually in the film Gladiator 1 with Russell Crowe, right? Yeah. They had Russell Crowe, and basically they had a wagon train going through Africa, and it was all desert, and it was like, and I just thought that's not right. It just doesn't work, right? Because it was barren, arid, and that's just not the Africa that would have existed, which they didn't portray that properly in the film Gladiator.
Yeah. This is the thing to wonder exactly what it was 2,000 years ago, say.
Very, 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 very different. Very, very different. And when you if we want to think about if one of the weirdest things in history is how Islam managed to rifle itself through the world quite quickly, right? And I think a clue to how rich and how green and how civilized Africa was because within 100 years of you're talking about the foundation of Islam's around 621, Mecca and all the rest of it. Within about 100 years, Islam is in control of a big chunk of Africa. How can that have happened if it was just barren desert? It happened because they were able to take over those places because there were roads, there were water sources, there was agriculture, and that's the only way Islam managed to settle itself in Africa because it was so rich.
Do you know how many oases there are in Africa, even in present day?
Well, I haven't gone around counting them.
Have a guess.
3?
776.
Well, you've counted them all, have you? Have you missed the one
Yes.
over? Have you
Yes.
missed?
There are about 90 absolutely enormous ones, but in total there are 776.
Do you know, before we go on a break, right? I know you're a big fan of Oasis and then Noel and Liam Gallagher, right? Why don't you say they could do a concert at least 700 of those Oases in Africa?
I would if Omar Sharif was there.
Oh, he's gorgeous, isn't he? Right, let's move on. We're gonna have a break now.
Right.
We're gonna. Yeah, I
Right.
think Michelle's just had a right go at me because I've been as high as a kite, and she reckons I've had too many dodgy donuts. So it's 8:35. We'll be back just before 8:50. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
Get the kettle on.
Yeah. Well, hang on. I'll go and tell Michelle that then. Right.
How's your weather where you are?
Oh, it's improving on. About -20.
Oh, yeah, when you tell me about that, I feel warmer when you tell me that.
Well, it's warm indoors. If you can stay warm into, it's a question really of whether you've got to go out. When you're retired, it's not as bad as if you're going to work and you've got to clean the car off in order to drive somewhere and drive back,
Yeah, the weather's never, well, the winter's never good when you've got to go to work. Everything becomes more difficult, except perhaps in the summer when the roads get more clogged up, with visitors. So where we are.
Yeah, that's another,
tourists and stuff.
Right, yeah.
But that thing that I mentioned about the Stonehenge and the nonsense they talked about it, and this is being broadcast. I mean, there would be people who believe that, wouldn't there? Because it's set out this story that these people controlling them by fear through Stonehenge stones. It was ridiculous.
Well, yeah. There's always speculation that aliens have had impacts throughout the world. You've got out on the steppes, you've got major roadways that go nowhere and they cut into the stone, into the rock face. You've got different elements in South America with the Incas and the Mayans, etc., that give you this reflection of saying there are these things that are created, and how did mankind actually do it? So, are there signal beacons for aliens? Did they have spaceships that come along? Did they build these landing strips for machinery that came from another world? I certainly would believe that there is alien life. We're not, in a trillion stars and a trillion galaxies.
But when you look at the distances and unless they have enormously long lives, much longer than ours, I mean, they wouldn't be able to travel, would they? The time it takes, unless
that's
much faster travel for a long time.
Yeah, but that's only based on the concept of Einstein's theory of relativity. So if you move at a constant rate at a constant time, there's nothing to say that you cannot move at a greater distance. See, I will always look at one thing, right? If you look at the number of bacteria and viruses in the world, and you look at the human body as a pivot, and you look at how many cells in your body, they're in the multi-millions, and then you extrapolate that out to the stars. Now, the distance between two synapses of your brain might be less than a millimeter. Okay, so the same relevancy is the distance between a cell and a star might only be a millimeter. It's only that relativity of time. And it's only because we have a certain concept and we're living within one sphere, which says we haven't experienced anything outside of that sphere. It's like the amoeba, right? When if you go back a million years, you said you had two cells get together, and then they joined, and then another two cells joined, and then they split and joined. And you consider the time aspect of that. Well, nothing to say that time doesn't move faster, and speed is relative to that.
Yes. Yes, but it's still. I mean, I certainly think there probably are aliens because there's so many constellations and so many. There must be billions of planets that could be life supporting. Must be.
Yes.
So you can't believe that we're on our own. On the other hand, the fact that they visited and did supposed to have done all this and then gone away again, that seems sort of nonsense.
If you're religious and you believe in angels,
I don't.
So
I don't believe in it. I'm not at all religious.
The next level of consideration is to say,
I don't believe in religion at all. So I'm an atheist. And well, perhaps I might believe in it if it came in different form, but because the religions always seem to give us the myths that we'd like to have,
right?
Life after death and all sorts of other things that humans can't face. We make these. There's nice stories made up that it's all going to be great at the end of the day. And I can't. And the stories that they tell about them, they're so. I don't know. There's so many that seem. The miracles. I don't believe in miracles either. They don't seem in the human world, which we're the one we live on. So I'm not at all religious. And the religions also give these in the same way as perhaps we want to believe things, don't we? Because they're nice.
Yeah. The question is there a creator as a God? Okay. A religion is the take-in of a philosophy and manipulating it to suit an environment of its own. I believe there's a creator.
You believe there's a creator?
I believe there's a creator.
Yeah.
I've had personal experiences that say to me that somebody has intervened in my life in 70 years that gives me an affirmation that there is a God.
Yeah.
Now, I'd say I'm Christian in belief, and I say Christian following the teachings of Christ, not necessarily, although I was an Anglican, I've also been a Protestant. I've also visited several other faiths. I've done a lot of research into Buddha, Taoism. I've read
very interesting religions. I must say, I've looked at quite a few of them.
And yes, some of the themes are taken from one group. Margaret, your microphone isn't on. Yeah, you're there now.
I'm from a very early form of life. You're not a creationist, though, are you, Will? You believe in
not creationist, because I could say that God could sow two seeds in a field. I know it's going to end up to be a magnolia tree that's 4,000 feet high and has all kinds of diversification, which then feeds a whole plethora of insect life and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Not creationist in that sense. And to say time. Okay, we say the universe as we now take the label says the Big Bang happened 6 billion years ago. I think the Big Bang could have happened 6 trillion years ago.
Well, they've found out it's much further back recently. They've found that out, haven't they? With these new telescopes and things they've got.
Well, we're limited to the extent that we can analyze information. Even medical science, right? You think medical science has come ahead? It's come ahead in the last 50 years compared to 100 years ago. It's come ahead in 1,000 years. And medical science probably only encapsulates 1% of what we could know or could do with medicine. Nobody has mapped all the full structure of DNA, the full structure of mRNA. They cannot tell you how every bit of mRNA actually affects a piece of DNA in order to do something. Or create a disease or stop a disease. Right. It's a wide range of stuff.
He's back.
Right, I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. In answer to this conversation, right? Because I'm living with a witch, does that mean that that's proof that witchcraft exists?
Well, she's put a spell on you, Carl.
Well, bloody hell, I haven't been able to get out of you. Of this terrible.
Carl, I'd have to agree with you, because if I said I was a druid at Stonehenge, and I was also a friar in the 11th century.
A friar tuck.
Oh, have you gone through the hypnosis thing?
Oh my God! Please help.
Gets better and better.
It's getting better and better. I tell you what, right? Roger's looking like a right clown with their hat on.
It looks very nice, Roger. It looks really nice.
Oh God!
My
Oh,
ex-wife knitted this.
What?
So
It's lovely.
And Drina's turned into a strobe light.
Carl, I
There
visited
she is.
Stonehenge in
Moccasin knots.
2006, and I was able to put my
Moccasin knots.
hand on the stones
The unwary.
when you could walk around and get access, and I could feel the vibrations, magnetic vibrations through the stones.
Yeah, well, my experience of Stonehenge, right, was I went there when they had an open access thing on the solstice, right? There were people jumping up and down on the stones, right? People urinating up against it. Yeah, it was terrible, right? That's why they shouldn't allow people to have open access to Stonehenge, because they treat it appallingly. But that's life. Anyway,
And a lot of other things.
yeah, and loads of other things. Look at Roger. He used to be a gnome, and now he's an entity.
I don't know what I am.
Right. Okay. Right. So what we're going to do? We're going to start off. With a bit more of Julius Caesar. Right. Shut up, Rog. We're going to start off with a bit more of Julius Caesar. Right. And I gotta be honest with you. Is it me?
Yes.
Does Will remind me of a famous character which used to wear a blue hat?
Famous character that wore a blue hat.
Yeah, blue hat.
And he looks like Uncle, what's his name in Only Fools and Horses? I can't remember his uncle. What was he called? Uncle Albert.
Uncle Albert. And I've been
Uncle
asked many times,
Albert.
I've been asked many times, was I Uncle Albert?
Yeah.
But I would say to you that Jason is related to an in-law of mine.
Who Uncle Albert is?
No, the main character.
Oh, yeah. Oh, really?
David Jensen.
Oh,
David
he's
Jason.
brilliant.
David Jason is related to, in fact, my brother's wife's family.
Ah.
In Wales.
Ah.
In Wales.
Well, I gotta be honest with you. It doesn't beat the story that I tell people that Lloyd George slept with my great grandmother, but that's life. I gotta work out what I'm doing. I've definitely lost the plot.
Yes.
What? Right. Okay. Where were we with his books? Hang on a minute. We were with his books. We're gonna do a bit more of his books.
23.
Were we? All right then. We right. Okay. Oh yeah. There we go. Right.
Yeah.
So now this is invasion number 2, right? So this is 55 BC. We've got to do 54 BC yet, but that's life, right? Anyway, we'll do a bit more, right? This is Julius Caesar. He's there with his old quill, right? Having delayed some days by reason of unfavorable winds, he weighed anchor about the 3rd watch, and after proceeding about 7 miles, found the cliffs crowded with the armed forces of the enemy. He should have said there was loads of weird-looking women with red hair, but he didn't put that in there. Right. Book 4, chapter 24. They all look like Margaret. Anyway, the enemy, perceiving the design of the Romans, sent forward their cavalry and charioteers, who are accustomed to fight in that manner. And the rest of their forces followed close behind and endeavoured to prevent our men from landing. So what's going to happen next? Let's see. So let's go on to book 4, chapter 25. This was a difficult matter. You can imagine he's pondering on board the boat. There we go. On account of the size of the ships, the depth of the sea, and the firmness of the enemy. Our soldiers, unused to this kind of warfare, with their hands encumbered, were obliged at the same moment to jump from the ships. stand firm in the waves and fight with the enemy. So there we go. They're about to jump. Remember, most of these are Marines, right? He doesn't say this. They're mainly Marines, Roman Marines, right? So book 4, chapter 26. At length, when Caesar perceived that the men hesitated, he ordered the ships of war to be moved a little aside from the transports and placed opposite the enemy, and used his engines and slingers to drive them from their position. Nice. Loving it. Right. Loving it. Encouraged by this, the soldiers leapt boldly from the ships and engaged the enemy. The Britons, unable to withstand the onset, it shouldn't be onslaught, onset, fled in all directions. So book 4, chapter 29. So obviously book 28 is missing because it's not about this, but book 29, chapter 20, book 4, chapter 29. The Britons renewed the engagement with their cavalry and chariots, in which kind of warfare they possess great skill. And they succeeded in killing some of our men. So in other words, we've got no idea where this is taking place, really. We really don't, right? So here we go. It jumps on a bit. After these things, Caesar thought it best, for many reasons, to lead back his army to Gaul, especially as the equinox was approaching and the sea is stormy in those parts. So in other words, he headed back, right? So what we're going to do, we're going to go on to the other invasion, right? Which is going to be when we manage to get through it, if we manage to get through it. All right. So there we go. Right. So anyway, going back to my notes, right? It's back to all of this, right? Oh, by the way, there's some images I want to show you, which I missed out, right? So just think about that there. These are the wonderful. This is the wonderful city in Algeria, and you're just thinking, look, it's all desert these days, right? But when you're thinking about a city like this, it must have been very productive to be able to construct this in the first place. To create this city, you must have had thousands and thousands of tons of timber to create the great sites that existed with this city in Algeria, right? Now, one last thing, one thing before we crack on, right?
Whoa.
Is as that's me, Roger. There. There you go. So basically, Bill went to Exeter, right? Because he's seeing this woman in Exeter called Florence, right? And basically, he said, I'm going to see Florence, right, on the weekend, right? Have you got any videos that can tell me about the Roman archaeology of Exeter? I said, yeah. And basically, right, I told him how to identify the Roman stones associated with Exeter, right? And the Roman stones are these ones. These heavy stones, right, which are usually on the lower courses at Exeter, indicate the original Roman city wall, right? These heaver tree stone that was used in this really thick sort of vulcanized stone that was actually used in the construction of the wall at Exeter, right? And obviously the other stuff is Anglo-Saxon and medieval, right? So I thought I'd chuck that in there. Bill wanted me to show you that, so I have. Right, so the next stuff I want to go back to is I want us to go all the way to here, right? And this is this is the other invasion, right? This is the other one. This is the third invasion, right? So obviously forget about the text a minute, right? So anyway, we're looking at this. So this is what I've decided is to relook at the Roman stuff at Ebbsfleet, which is at Pegwell Bay, the Roman site. So that's where we're going to go next. So let me get my notes. And as I said, I'd come back to this. We've got 2 burials to look at as well, which was a specific question of Margaret. So what I want to do is we're looking at, we believe that the Ebbsfleet archaeological evidence is to do with this last invasion of 54 BC, searching for the launch site not necessarily the landing site, but the launch site of Caesar's British invasion, right? So there we go. We got precise dates. At 12:15, some say 12:16 on the 4th of July, in 54 BC. What we've got is that we're gonna look at landing at Pegwell Bay, but before we actually get there, so 4th of July, about sunset, fleet sails. There you go. About midday, the wind falls, fleet cannot maintain its course and is carried on too far by the tide. At sunrise, Britain is sighted, left afar on the port side. This is totally made up, right? Fleet follows the turn of the tide and strove by rowing to make that part of the island where there was the best place of demarcation. With there you go. And the 5th of July, about midday, fleet reaches the shore of Britain. Right. So okay, when I say made up, how do we know any of this is true? But anyway, so what we got to do, we got to find the archaeological evidence at Pegwell Bay. Now remember, the map is completely wrong because between the Isle of Thanet and the mainland of Kent, there's water. So let's just go with this, the original thing, right? So there we go. The peninsula, Ebbsfleet Peninsula. So Ebbsfleet, 54 BC, searching for the launch site of Julius Caesar's invasions in Britain. So when we think about this, all this research has come, which has been put together by the University of Leicester, which obviously I was proud to be part of years ago. So going back to what we said, the other stuff that we've said, Julius Caesar's first actual invasion, not the failed one, the actual invasion of Britain was on the 23rd of August, 55 BC. Within a month, he was gone. And although his army, fewer than 10,000 strong, did not campaign beyond East Kent. So in other words, he probably stayed on the Isle of Thanet. End of story. Just wandered around. There you go. By crossing the sea, Julius Caesar adventured beyond the world known to Romans, what they called the Orbis Terrarum, the known world. And he had brought Britain under the authority of Rome. In less than a year, he would return. And now, the location of his landing point may have been revealed for 55 BC. Now, the point is, you can see the wording there. He brought Britain under the authority by stepping foot in Britain, right? All the African stuff has been really relevant today. So when we think, again, some of the backstory, Julius Caesar's invasion of Britain was actually part of a much broader campaign, right? So some of the stuff that we've read out now is all part of a work that looked at the Gallic campaign. It was about the Gallic campaign. So this 9-year Gallic campaign lasted from 58 BC all the way to 51 BC, including a defeat of Vercingetorix at Elysium in 52 BC, right? And the hundreds of thousands of men that he supposedly had with him. Our fundamental source of the information from the entire invasion, the only real written account, is Julius Caesar. And anyone who then writes about Julius Caesar's campaign is secondary, right? So Roman generals had to send dispatches called their literare or their vitae, their works, their history, their life history, about their activities to the Roman Senate, and would also write reports or commentari. So the book we know that we've already read extractions about today is known as the Deo Bello Gallicio, which is basically the work of Julius Caesar's Belgic Gallic War, which included Britain. In it, Julius Caesar describes how he campaigned across modern France, Belgium, Switzerland, Liechtenstein, and how he twice crossed what the Romans regarded as major boundaries, the Rhine, and then crossing the sea over to Britain. Now, one of the things that I haven't shown you, right? So what we've got Ebbsfleet. The last time we've looked at this was not so long ago, was that we said that brown stuff there is actually high tide, completely inundated with water, probably mainly at low tide most of the time as well. So you've got the Isle of Thanet and you've got the mainland here, and a bit further on, you've got Canterbury, right? So one of the things we didn't show you last time was, in fact, oh God, where's this map? Oh no, hang on a minute. Where is it? There. We didn't show you this last time. This is basically the plan of the archaeological landscape that they surveyed, right? So the area that they surveyed, right, is quite extensive, right? So they extensively excavated this yellow area, right, which was part of work involving road work project. And the red line that we're particularly interested in is the ditch. So you can actually work out that if you look, you could think that the ditch itself might actually enclose an area, right? So we've got a bit of the ditch in the east, we've got a bit of most of the ditch in the north, bits of the ditch in the south. So this is what some people have actually argued are in fact the landscape that was very familiar to Julius Caesar. So remember, over on the right, not far away over on the right, okay, that itself on the right was actually water, right? But now today, this site at Ebbsfleet is over 1 kilometre from the sea. So one thing that we've got is that the yellow area there was to build an access road and a new pipeline. So they excavated. So the defensive ditch is in red on there. Didn't show you this last time. So what we're thinking of, the contours themselves, right, are taken from the 1872 map, topographical landscape that indicated that that in the not so distant past, the sea was very close to the Ebbsfleet site, and that would indicate, obviously, is this indicative of a fortification, as we discussed last time. We'll keep this on here. So just talking quickly, we've gone over this before. One of the reasons that Julius Caesar gave for invading Britain in 55 BC was that the Britons had assisted the Gauls earlier. When Julius Caesar returned to these shores less than a year later, in 54 BC, he had a different motivation. During the preceding winter, the winter of 55 BC, Mandropacus, a prince of the Iron Age tribes of the Trinovantes, had fled to him in France and asked him for protection. So he decided to embark on this invasion. And there was a peace treaty. Julius Caesar claimed to have conquered Britain after he left in 54 BC, the last time he would leave the shores of Britain. The resulting peace settlement that Caesar enforced, secured by the taking of hostages, required the tribes of southeast Britain to pay tribute to Rome. And obviously, I don't know where we get the likes of, the king of Orkney coming into this, but we do. So it was traditionally believed that in both 55 and 54 BC, Julius Caesar actually landed in a completely different location. But now from the Ebbsfleet evidence is that from 2010, Oxford and Wessex Archaeology undertook archaeological excavations. And the archaeological excavations, as we now know, right, are in fact this ditch, right? This is one of the ditches, right? So this was found in 2010, and 5 meters wide, this ditch, 2 meters deep. And the pottery roughly is from 50 years BC, around the time of Julius Caesar's invasion, 54 BC. So this was all uncovered associated with the work involving this roadway, which is in yellow. So they found lots of Iron Age stuff. They found Paleolithic stuff, but the stuff that we're really, really interested in is in regards to the red line. Now, they did more work in 2016 based on this archaeological evidence. And in 2016, they specifically excavated this area and excavating this area and excavating this ditch, which is massively important to us today. So this is now a kilometre from the sea, but back then it was very, very near. Well, basically a stone throw from the sea. Now, within this defensive ditch, they found some really interesting archaeological evidence, including a pilum, which is a Roman javelin, in the lower fills. And the pit in its base is well associated with some Iron Age archaeological evidence. So how this got to Leicester University, they analysed all the results from the work within the landscape. And when you think about it, this area in red, the southern bit and the easterly bit and the northern bit, is thought to cover an area of 20 hectares. How realistic that is, we don't know. Is it a standard hexagonal landscape? We don't know, right? But what we do know is that the ditch itself, being 5 meters wide and 2 meters deep, is absolutely substantial. So what we've got as well is we've got this image. They excavated a number of trenches, right? And in this trench is some really interesting archaeological data, right? So this was in 2016. So this is part of the ditch, and within here they found evidence of human remains, which we will look into, right? Which we'll definitely look into, right? Weapons and bones, as it were. But before we actually go there, we've actually got some text that I've actually copied out, right? So this text itself, University of Leicester, putting all this stuff together, putting the stuff from 2010 together, 2016, going into 2017, 5 meter wide ditch, a fort of 20 hectares. So let me give you an idea of 20 hectares, right? There are 2.5 acres in a hectare, right? So this makes it 50 acres in area, which is the area defined by the ditches that enclose Maiden Castle in Dorset. So it's a big area, and that would naturally be able to contain the Roman military that he required at the time, right? So there we go, a ditch, weapons, and we're not mentioning the bone remains, which are really, really interesting, like all of these things. So again, location, Ebbsfleet, on the Isle of Thanet, overlooking Pegwell Bay. Significance, the site is considered the first and currently only evidence of Julius Caesar's landing in Britain, ever. That's it. So we've got something that's seemingly in date for Julius Caesar's invasion of 54 BC, temporary invasion, right? And they're saying that it's very similar to stuff that they've actually excavated in France associated with Vercingetorix. So what we've got is they've got a broken pilum, that one piece of Roman pilum evidence. It's the site. It was previously used as an Iron Age settlement, which appears to have been abandoned or destroyed at the time of the invasion. So in other words, typical Roman, they would occupy on an existing site, right? And you've got, if you want to look at digging for Britain, there it is. And obviously it's now 1 kilometre away from the modern day coastline, right? But it wasn't back then. So we're back to this. So what we're thinking of is that when they were excavating this, there was lots of material that had been washed into the ditch because of rain, right? Which might mean that the ditch itself was left open for a while and various objects were washed into it from various other archaeological contexts. Now, what is of great interest to us is this. This is a pilum head, right? And what is a pilum head? Well, a pilum head is that. That's not what they found, by the way, there. But the whole point of a pilum is that the Roman soldiers with a pilum, right? And this is sort of a Roman army from roughly about AD 100. Not that time. But the pilum itself, what you would do is the pilum would hit a shield, right? And because the shaft is heavy, would bend the metal, meaning that you can't pull it out the shield and chuck the pilum back. That's the whole point. So again, you go back to this, that's what they found, which was a great piece of archaeological dating evidence. Now, the problem is we're basing so much on this archaeology, right? And what does one pilum make a Roman military fort, right? Not so much, but they found other bits of Roman military evidence there, bits of broken sword and stuff, and diagnostic stuff, bits of pottery and so on. But you've got the human remains as well. But a pilum of this date, this is the date. What is a Roman pilum doing in this ditch if it hadn't have been associated with a Roman soldier, right? So it's very important that. So the pilum itself was discovered in a defensive ditch. The weapon itself originally measured 2 meters long. And we get this object, right? Now, this object is basically 10 centimeters in length, right? Which is quite a substantial object, very substantial object. So, and the person who would have thrown it, where is he? There he is. We showed this last week. Right. So one of the things when we go back to the archaeological evidence again, right? And by the way, did it look anything like this? Well, not really, because it's a flat and bottom ditch, and it's unlikely to have looked anything like this at all. There's no evidence to say it looked like anything like this. It was a flat bottom ditch. It was temporary. It was put up, and then that's the point. It was abandoned. The ditch was abandoned. That would indicate that it may have been a wooden palisade. The wood was taken away, burnt, couldn't be used again as a defensive work. The village had already been flattened there, and the water-worn evidence. So basically, the ditch was left open and bits of pottery were washed in there. Maybe this pilum had washed in there as well. Don't know, right? But anyway, going back to, and obviously, those are the types of vessels that they're said to have used. A trireme, an oared vessel with masts, right? That's like quite a chunky work, right? So, but anyway, if we go back to the illustration, right, which is back to here, the ditch as well, right? And then we're going to talk about the bones that were found in there, right? So looking at this, they didn't actually find an entrance because they couldn't actually find in full what's going on, right? An entrance per se. They think that they found something that might indicate something like that, but it could be from an earlier date. But anyway, we've got the ditch, and what they found in there, they found a bronze coin, right? They also found a mold, which may have been associated with coins, for example. They found other iron objects, badly corroded, difficult to identify, right? But what they did find was actually human remains, right? And what I've got is my notes about the human remains. But before we go on to the human remains, it's said that they associated with the ditch, they found a skull, fragments of a skull, and arm bones, and a femur, right? And the femur shows signs of a cut that was inflicted by a sharp blade. What does this mean? Let's go on to it. So let's go on to what my notes tell me. Let's go to my notes. So basically here, right? So I wrote something up which is quite brief about the bones, right? That they found in the ditch. I don't have any images of the bones, which is unfortunate, right? So one of the, so if we take these as two skeletons, bits of bones of two skeletons, right? So the biological profile is that one set of human remains was male between 25 and 35 years. The radiocarbon dated evidence puts it around 50 BC, which ties in with the time span that we're thinking of. So give or take a little bit here and there, radiocarbon dated evidence is never precise. So it could be from 54 BC. Deposition found within the primary fill of the ditch. So in other words, it was there. It was the bones had ended up in there, right? It wasn't part of a set grave, right? It wasn't part of a burial structure. There were no grave goods. There was no funeral practice. The bones had ended up in the ditch. End of, nothing more than that, right? So the bones themselves could be strongly consistent with a casualty from a military conflict, right? Or a military context, right? So the other set of human remains, right? Skeleton 2 was an adult, which was a young adult, maybe in their 20s. Now, the radiocarbon dates are a little bit sort of could be 50 years BC, right? Could be 50 years BC, maybe later, maybe earlier, right? These are found within the same ditch. There's no burial associated with the bones, and the bones have been likely to have been washed into the ditch from elsewhere, right? So set of human remains left out, whatever, right? So this supports the idea of short-lived, non-domestic use, reinforces conflict-related explanation rather than settlement or ritual burial. So what do those human remains tell us before we sort of go on a little bit further? So these are two unceremonially deposited sets of human remains. They're little bits of human remains, but they indicate two people, right? Were recovered from the ditch. One set of human remains probably discarded in there, another had eroded in there via water movement, right? Because the ditch, remember, was not filled in at the time. Maybe never filled in. Maybe it's filled in by natural occurrences, agriculture, or whatever. But nobody ever stood there with a shovel filling in a ditch. Remember, it had been a big set of ditches, right? So the radiocarbon dates tell us is roughly around the 50s BC. So supporting interpretation of this ditch being short-lived, it was temporary. Going back to what I've said the other week, why would this be there? Why does this exist, right? So all of this telling us that there's something really, really interesting going on with this ditch. Further clues to a Roman link to the Ebbsfleet defences tell us that it's similar in shape and size to stuff that they found in France from just a few years later. Now, when we want to go with topographical clues from more interpretive stuff from Julius Caesar, right? We think of this. So what of Julius Caesar's account of the invasion? Unhelpful. He did not say exactly where his army landed in 54 BC. He wasn't specific. He didn't say there was a McDonald's there or something. There was nothing specific. There may have been a wimpy, by the way. Simply stating that it was at the place that they had learned the previous year was the best place of demarcation for his troops, which we mentioned in the text from the earlier thing, right? So, but he did provide 3 clues about the site. The first, so if we go back to here, right? If we go back to here, so the first is contained in his description of the crossing, right? So that the army could embark and disembark in daylight. The Roman fleet had set sail in the evening. So in other words, he had an understanding of the tides. Caesar's plan was to sail northwards from France with the tide. That's what the Spanish Armada did actually in 1588, while using the wind to help cross the channel westwards. Exactly the same then. But at around midnight, the wind dropped and the tide carried the fleet too far north, so that at sunrise they saw Britain far behind them on the port side. So if we go back to this thing that I looked at earlier on. So if we look at this plan, right, whether the dates and stuff are there, times, that's something else. But if we think about what we're reading, the second clue is in Caesar's description of the landing itself. He said the Britons had gathered to oppose the disembarking army just as they had in 55 BC, but taken aback by the size of the Roman fleet, numbering, wait for it, guys, 800 ships. So that's basically one ship for every 10 men, right? The Britons withdrew and concealed themselves on higher ground, which would indicate further on the Isle of Thanet. As for the location of the landing site, Caesar gives us hints in two separate places, describing it as the best place to land and with a soft or sandy open shore. All of these point to Pegwell Bay. So it would have been sandy, very silty, that the estuarine, there you go. Pegwell Bay is large, flat. So if you go back to the image that we get of the aerial view of the landscape, right? I know the green stuff would be underwater, but that looks fairly flat. Pegwell Bay is large, flat, and sandy, so no sort of humps and bumps, no sort of cliffs, whatever. So the biggest bay of this type on the East Kent coast. Its northern end at Ramsgate, obviously you can see it slightly off, which is a bit far away, is higher ground, but this is all fairly flat. Once a wide marshy area, you could say this is a bit like the Duddon estuary. So the Wansum Channel was systematically reclaimed in the medieval period, right? So all that green stuff was reclaimed in the medieval period, right? So there we go, back to this. And it seems likely that in the time of the 50s BC, the eastern side of Ebbsfleet enclosure lay next to the sea, right? So with all of this said, getting an idea of everything, understanding this, we're getting a good idea that this is the locality. So it goes back to this, and I think this is a point that Andy will mention back to this, right? Back to this. The curvature of the earth means that a sailor in a small boat some way out to sea can only see high ground, the kind of land that Caesar must have been describing when he said that at sunrise he sighted Britain left afar on the port side. The land to the south of Thanet is low-lying. You wouldn't have seen it. While to the north is the Thames estuary and beyond that the low-lying coastline of Essex. So that was obviously beyond the headland of Thanet. The only high ground that would have been visible to Julius Caesar would have been the cliffs near Ramsgate, which is the northern side of Pegwell Bay. Caesar's description of an open shore is consistent with Pegwell Bay, and with 800 ships and an army of between 10 and 20,000 men and at least 2,000 horses to land in a single day, it is the strongest candidate for the best place of disembarkation. So in other words, the boats are offloading, going back out to sea, offloading, going back out to sea, however that worked. Moreover, the higher lands of Thanet are the only high grounds in the area to which the Britons could withdraw, as Caesar reported at Ramsgate, right? So it talks about this storm, right, which is on there, right, about midday, 5th of July. Storm breaks. So leaving on the 4th of July, on the 5th of July, the Roman fleet landed on the 5th of July, 54 BC, leaving a force equivalent to a legion to build the base and watch over the ships. Caesar records that at first light, he marched the rest of the army to attack the Britons. Their intended victims took refuge in a hill fort. We've no idea where this hill fort is. It actually, the problem is, was it Canterbury or was it on Thanet? That's the question. We don't know. It was a resounding victory, but the Roman sense of triumph was not to last. No sooner was the battle won that Caesar received news that the fleet had been damaged at Pegwell Bay. The galleys are likely to have been beached on arrival, but the transports were still riding at anchor with all their horses, all their supplies. Caesar writes that he returned to the coast immediately, where he decided to beach all the ships and protect them by building a single line of defences. And the single ditch found at Ebbsfleet is consistent with it being this defence. So 800 vessels. Now, as we get to the end of this text today, right, as we get to the end, Now, I'm going to make a point. There's no way that Germany was going to invade Britain because it didn't have a bay like this anymore because most of it was all silted up. The Germans would have faced exactly the same problem if they invaded Britain, which they didn't. Right. And obviously, the German high command was well aware of Julius Caesar's invasions because this is what they taught in German military schools. They knew all this. They knew about the attempted and actual invasions of Julius Caesar in Britain. And hence why one of the reasons why Germany didn't actually invade Britain in the Second World War. It was near on impossible. And it wasn't very possible for Julius Caesar either. The repair of the fleet was imperative because Julius Caesar always intended to return to France at the end of the fighting season, which was probably a month. And the end of the fighting season was drawing near. Remember, he was there in July. You know, he couldn't really last in Britain and beyond September. The army in Britain had no supplies of food for the winter. Exactly the same thing that Adolf Hitler would have faced. And if it was unable to return to the continent, it could have been surrounded and starved into submission by the Britons. Exactly. Nor were the legions left in France strong enough to prevent an uprising there by themselves. So Julius Caesar had brought most of his army to invade Britain when in fact it should have been in Gaul. The army worked for 10 days and nights to haul all the ships ashore and to build the defences. While this completed and the base strongly fortified, Julius Caesar left the original garrison and all the skilled workmen in the legions to repair the ships. Well, he led his troops back out into Kent to restart the advance. The main army would only return to sail back to France once they'd achieved victory and the peace settlement that bound Britain to the Roman Empire. And that, my folks, is the story of Julius Caesar's invasion in Britain. So I know it's getting late now. It's 9:35, and maybe we'll do some more of this next week. But then again, it might not be a lot. So if you give, maybe we could start off with this next week, but we'll finish off with this now. So there we go. This is still about the first invasion. Like 56, the first successful invasion in 55, and then it goes on to talk about from this after these things. Remember, this is 55 BC. Julius Caesar thought it best for many reasons to lead back his army to Gaul, especially as the equinox was approaching and the sea is stormy in these parts. So we'll start off with this and then we'll finish. Second invasion. So this is technically the third invasion, but the second invasion that actually took place in 54 BC. So book 5, chapter 1. In the winter following, Julius Caesar prepared a great number of ships than he had done before, and ordered those which were damaged in the former year to be repaired. You know, my doubt that it was 800 ships is quite there because that's a lot of vessels, and it's a lot, and anyway, 800 vessels. Yeah, moving on. So book 5, chapter 8, Julius Caesar landed in Britain with 5 legions and 2,000 horse, right? 5 legions, 20,000 men. There's one problem with 25,000 men, actually. There's one problem with saying that number, right? The legions there would have been auxiliaries with them, which were non-legionaries. Where were the auxiliaries? The auxiliaries would go in first and die first, and the legions would go in and take the glory. There's none of that in this text. So the Britons drew up their forces on the higher ground with their cavalry and chariots like they had done before. And one more bit of the text, and then we'll finish. Chapter 11. The Britons fight with chariots in the following manner. First, they drive about in all directions and throw their weapons and generally disorder the ranks of the enemy. And the very terror of their horses and the noise of their wheels. So there's only one way you can have the noise of the wheels, maybe, right? Is if they're on the rocky beach or something, right? Or the stone around, or however that's interpreted. So book 5, chapter 12, when they have thrown the enemy into confusion, they leap from their chariots and fight on foot. Folks, on that note, it's 9:38. We've got a few more pages to do next week. And that's how we will start next week. So what we're going to do, we're going to call that a day. We'll start off with Julius Caesar next week, and then we'll move on without any prisoners. So right, that's it. So that's me. Let's get me on. And there we go. There. Okay. Am I still there? You can't see my video. There we go.
You're on now. Yeah.
Right. Good. Yeah. Well, I got to be honest with you, the only reason Drina does these is to see me. And secondly, Drina, right, when I've got my new photograph of me in my new snazzy clothes, right, I will send a copy to you, Drina. Only you signed.
Thank you.
Only you, Drina. No favoritism.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I can't be bothered to send one to Will because it's in the States. But hang on, Will, I gotta send you a Illicig pillar which is on its way. You've got a new Illicig pillar on its way. And you've got photographs of my fleeces in the Illicig pillar, right? And those photographs of the fleeces, you will be able to buy a freshly cut fleece in the new year by an actor that's been in Downton Abbey 3 cutting fleeces.
Carl, I'm signing off.
Yeah.
Oh, you're signing off, are you, Will?
Yes, I'm dropping off.
Hang on. Will, stay there, Will. See you then, Roger.
Thanks all. Take care.
All the best, Roger.
I wasn't able to insult him anymore, Roger.
Save it up for next week.
All right, love. All right then. We'll no doubt, Roger. I'll send you something in the post. I'll send him a bomb in the post, and it'll be.
Okay. Thank you. That'll be nice change.
Oh yeah, don't worry about it, Rog. The last time I tried to hit your house with a scud.
You're doing okay. Good luck with your stuff as well.
Yeah, don't worry about it, man. I love smoking my stuff.
Okay, see you.
No, Rog.
Roger.
No, Rog. No, Rog. Do you know what? Right, Michelle was reading something the other day, right, about smoking, right? Well, I knew this. I've known this for some time. You on none of the acting sets in Wales, you're allowed to smoke, right? So, how is it? I was smoking in a production not so many months ago, right? It's terrible, right? Apparently, I'm a really good smoker. I'm there, not going like this.
Why
I'm loving it.
Why do they keep smoking in things?
Oh no, it was a 1980s drama. That's why, Andy.
So what? Loads of people didn't smoke in the 80s. Everything now that they're making, they're really ramming cigarettes down everybody's throats, which makes me very suspicious that there's some product placement going on there.
Ooh.
Actually, Andy's right. In the last year, out of the 16 productions I've been on, I've been asked to smoke in 3.
Yeah.
I've noticed that there wasn't an obesity crisis, was there, when we all smoked?
Yeah, exactly.
Hang on a minute, what's going on? There's too much. Much too young. Right, okay. Married with kids and don't do with you. Oh my God.
It's annoying, because when we were working in TV in the 1980s, we were objecting to a lot of this and the objectification of young girls in school clothes on pop videos, on kids programs. And Karen actually got into a lot of trouble because she actually banned one video by a very famous singer, and they got really shirty about it. And she said, we shouldn't be showing this to kids. It's ridiculous.
No, I agree. I agree.
And it's all gone, and it's coming back again. You're thinking, what is going on?
And Andy is very right. Andy's very right. It's just that it's like when we're on set, it's like, oh right, any volunteers to to smoke, and basically the fags that they give us are like, there's no tobacco in it, but they are fags. And I usually go through 2 or 3 packs to just get this. But Andy's right. Suddenly people are smoking. I've been doing in 2011. It's the first time I've ever been asked to smoke, and I've done it on 3 productions out of 16. So Andy's very good point.
Did they smoke in Downton Abbey?
No, I was shearing a bloody sheep.
I don't mean just you. I mean in general. I don't remember.
It's all about me, though. well, if you notice on Downton Abbey, there's very few children in it, which is really weird. But I think I'm pretty. No, I didn't see anyone. I
Didn't
was on
see,
set.
no, Lady Mary wasn't there with a cigarette holder, was she?
Rather,
No, they did. I don't think they did any smoking.
hey, do you know what? I
don't
would have been.
remember.
I would have been great in Platoon, right? Is that you smoke this shit to escape from reality? I'd do like a gay version. It'd be great. I'm all for that. Talking about gay and happy, Will, anything you want to say?
I was just going to say, cannabis is legal in Canada. You're allowed to grow up to 4 plants in your own environment. If you're growing more, then you're accused of being a distributor, and that's illegal. But you can grow 4 plants, and you can smoke cannabis legally in Canada.
Oh, me and Andy are going over there next week. Right.
Good for the arthritis.
It's good. Andy suffers from loads of arthritis, and Claire, I loads of it. Right. Any excuse. I need it for my mind. I need it to settle my head. Anything else from you, Will?
Yeah. Bruce Forsyth said, I don't have any favorites, but you are my favorite, Carl. And you, Dorina, and you, Margaret, and you, Anne, and you, Andy. But I wouldn't tell you all at the same time.
Nice one, Will.
Well, right, we like you too.
Oh, yes. We like you. Oh, shut that door. I got to do. Do they mean me? They surely do. Who's that?
Frankie Howard.
No, it was. Go on.
Frankie Howard.
No. Oh.
Do it again.
No, matron. Oh, that was.
Oh
no. No, I forgot. Oh God.
Kenneth Williams.
No, it was someone else who used to do the BBC One show on a Sunday. Oh, he's dead now. I can't remember.
No.
Titty me not. Right. Anyway,
It's Frankie Howard, isn't it?
Yeah, but no.
Arthur
yeah, but
no, it wasn't Arthur bloody Askey. Do they mean me? They surely do. Derek Jameson. It was Derek Jameson.
Yes.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah,
you're right. He is dead. Yeah.
Yeah, I blooming hope so as well. Right. Okay. Right. Anyway, talking about that, Margaret.
Oh well, going back to Ebbsfleet and Pegwell Bay and all of that.
Oh, we love that.
Did the archaeologists dig there because of the writings of Julius Caesar, or have they excavated?
No, they were chucking a road through and they found it. That's it.
Did they?
Yeah.
So it wasn't because of Julius Caesar's writings.
I think some of the earlier stuff was they were postulating what the archaeologists, yes, if you read between the lines, the archaeologists were thinking that there's something not quite right about the landscape. So what the archaeologists had done earlier on, they had modeled the entire landscape from Kent all the way across the Wassam estuary and over to Thanet, and they actually put it all together and they said it could be anywhere, right? So if you realize that it was all boggy and muddy and marshy and like the Duddon estuary, whatever, back in the Roman period, then that reduces your area to study. So when they started to work, right, okay, what was on the landscape? And then they started to look, and then they got this peninsula Ebbsfleet, and then they were able to work this out. So
would they be able to look underneath the silt in that channel?
Yes. Oh, you're thinking about Roman vessels.
Well, I can't imagine they got 800 ships in that.
No.
Channel, can you?
I've got a headache over that because it's like
exaggeration slightly.
It's like there would be so much congestion, right? It would be a nightmare, right? Why do you need 800 vessels anyway? And if that trireme that I showed you in the vessel, right? You know, you could get a few men on that one, right? and I'm going to spit it in there. You know, the military fleet and all the barges that the Germans were going to get together to invade Britain, I wasn't anywhere near 800, right? And it's just like, I know there were thousands of vessels involved in the D-Day landings, right? But this had been built up over a few years, right? But when you think about Julius Caesar, right, where's his big harbours in northern France to keep these vessels? Nobody talks about that, but you do when you talk about Caligula, because he builds these harbours for these vessels, right? So this is what gets me so angry. Next week, folks, I've got to do Caligula, right? I have got to lie as much as I can to tell you that Caligula did invade. No, sorry, I don't mean that. I've got to try and find any scrap of evidence to say Caligula invaded. And if I can find one single scrap of evidence, it's more evidence than we've got at Pegwell Bay for Julius Caesar. There you go. Right, Margaret, anything else, love?
No, that's it. Thank you very much.
Do you know what? I some people have got goodie bags coming to them in the post.
But not me.
So when you I'm not I'm really excited because some people are getting first aid covers. Some are getting Kylie Minogue albums, all sorts of things. I'm sending one of them to Judith. Right, Judith, anything you want to say, love?
Very quickly, you said if somebody wanted, you'd carry on with this Caesar invasion next week. Yes, please.
Yeah, we are. We're going to do a bit, love.
All right,
we are.
that's it. Thank you.
So the way I'm going to do next week is I'm going to use this stuff that we've Julius Caesar, and I'm just going to try and push it into the Caligula stuff, right? And I'm going to probably be a bit more archaeological next week with Caligula. Let's just look at Caligula, right? Let's just look at what he achieved rather than being put in history as a nut job, right? And dodgy films made about his sexual conquests, or
His
maybe
horse. And his horse.
And his horse. Well, you know, right. Talking about horses, Andy.
Yeah, I was quite interested in that route that he was supposed to have taken. I wasn't quite sure why he set off and sailed through the night.
And Andy, can you do me a favour?
Yeah.
Can I put the image up, and can you sort of do a maritime look at this quickly?
Yeah.
Right, let's just do it. I want you to talk. You're the maritime guy. Put you on your spot, Andy. I knew you were going to say that. So, hang on a minute. Let's just share. Let's share this. Let's share. Sharing is caring, as Margaret knows. Right. Right. Margaret, next time when you send me copies of books, right, can you make sure that single copy of Penthouse is found before you send it to me?
Okay.
You didn't find it, did you? I'm not saying I might send it back to you. Right, Andy, go for it.
Right. So, okay, so you've got a big tidal flow through there that changes every 6 hours. So it's going to take them more than 6 hours to get across. So they have to zigzag in a way. So heading out the way they did, you can assume that the tide is going from bottom left to top right, right? And then it will change and bring them back again. But I'm kind of wondering if that is accurate, they should have then zigzagged over to Dover from that number 2. But something went wrong. So maybe the wind dropped. I don't know, but I would have thought it would have taken about 5 or 6 hours to get across, not as long as it's taken there. So it's taken them 12 hours. So something went wrong there. If that is accurate, there could have been some fog, could have been anything like that. The visibility is right. To give you an idea, the horizon is 12 miles away at 100 feet above sea level, right? So on a trireme, you're not going to be 100 feet above, even if you go to the top of the mast. You're going to be, it's like 15 or 20 feet above sea level. So you are only going to see the higher bits like the cliffs. You're not going to see the rest of it. So it's possible that they did get lost or subject to the weather part way across. if that's correct. So
right, if you have finished there, the one point I would make is that 800 vessels, right?
no,
How did they all arrive?
no,
No.
I don't think 800 at all.
No.
Interesting as well. The picture you showed of the trireme as well was a lot bigger than the ones you'd shown of the smaller ones from the other illustrations before as well. They were a lot smaller.
It was bloody huge.
Yeah, I mean, where's he going to get 800 triremes from? You know,
You're not.
there might be quite a few in the Mediterranean, but you'd have to sail them around, which isn't out of the question. But that's a much, much bigger project. And then where you're going to put them and get them ready for the troops to get on in the first place. And like I said, there were no ports big enough for that. These are massive, you know. They're like,
Right,
what,
so-
80 feet long? So
Did
Right,
he
so-
describe them? Did he describe that that's what they were?
What do you mean? Well, no, right. If we take this conversation out a minute, right? The Spanish Armada had 24 warships, 44 merchant vessels, 38 auxiliary vessels, 31 supply vessels, right? Top of my head, that's 120 odd vessels. My maths is wrong there. We're talking about altogether 30,000 people in 120 odd vessels, right? Julius Caesar needed 800 vessels to transport 20,000 men, and you're just thinking, no. If we look at something more plausible, right? So if we think about Dunkirk, right? Obviously, it's the other way round, but it's still crossing. It's still crossing the channel, right? So let's see Dunkirk evacuation. How many vessels were actually used? So we're talking about it doesn't say, but
they went backwards and forwards though, didn't they? That was a bit of a difficult one. So
it's a difficult
I
one.
guess he,
I would
he
have
was
thought a
bringing he was bringing horses as well, though, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
So they had to be fairly big to bring horses.
Yeah.
I mean, a trireme must have carried at least 100 on top of the crew. So
Yeah, exactly.
The
It only
question I
needs-
would put is how many of the armored force would be on the top deck as opposed between a lower deck, so they protected from the weather crossing to conserve their strength and energy, and the sailors had free run across the top deck. So they may not have stacked the top decks, they may have only used the lower decks for transporting the manpower, plus the horses.
Well, the triremes had slaves in the lower decks. So if that's
Well, they
what
did for the lower for rowing, but
yeah,
you had 3 decks. You didn't necessarily have 2 decks, did
Yeah.
you? You had 3 decks, and the
Yeah.
and the galley.
yeah.
So really
Perhaps he
question where
meant
where they
800.
stacked the men, as opposed to trying to cram. If you talk about the Germans, the light craft that the Germans designed, which were like the landing craft they would have used, similar landing craft they used to go to Dunkirk to land on Dunkirk, were very shallow vessels, and they were primarily only carrying men. They weren't necessarily carrying a lot of armor. They were light barges, if you
Yes,
read
they were.
the history. So you could pack 50 guys. You know, if you took Andy, you the maritime man. When I was in school, I belonged to a canoe club, and we had 15 or 20 foot canoes, and we could get 10, 15, 20 guys into one canoe for 20 foot, something like that.
Yeah. That's why I think I would favor the smaller boats that we saw in the other illustrations. They could have been readily acquired along that coastline as well.
Right.
Yeah, but 800. I still don't think.
Well, questionable.
Yeah.
The Germans were going to land 140,000 men in their first attempt, and another 250,000 another attempt with tanks and all the rest of it, right? But I do believe that they didn't. Most of what they just didn't have enough craft to do that anyway, right? But the fact is, back to the original point, the more logical point, which is all part of this, is that where did all these vessels come from? You know, where did all these vessels come from? You know, it's all good and true for us to to evacuate the forces off the beaches in Dunkirk the other way round, and they were going back and forth. Lots of these were small vessels and all the rest of it. But how many vessels are we talking? We're not talking about tens of thousands of vessels, are we?
No.
And they were available on the beaches in a modern whatever. So there's a lot of exaggeration here, and what you okay. Maybe what we should do next week, right? Maybe what we should do next week is maybe what we should do next week is look at Julius Caesar, look at the last Julius Caesar stuff, right? Try and get to Caligula from there, right? But there's something in the middle, right? Using the sort of layer stuff with Tim Ingold and sort of how things really work and how things pin together from the evidence that we've got and what we haven't got and all the rest of it. Maybe what we should do is look at this evidence as what's plausible and what isn't, right? Most of us have got the gut feeling that 800 isn't plausible.
No.
Most of us have got the gut feeling that that the amount of men involved, it doesn't sound plausible, right?
Don't forget what's going on today. You've got people coming across from France to Britain in little inflatable boats at 40 at a time. You know, it doesn't need a very big boat to put a lot of people. Okay, they're overloaded and not ideal, but it doesn't really take a very big boat to carry a few people. So.
But they're not bringing armory and horses.
No, I mean you could have bigger ones for bringing horses and things, but you don't. The armor wouldn't make a lot of difference.
You wouldn't need 800 of that size.
Yeah, so if we look logically, 100 people in each boat, right?
Yeah,
so that's 10 boats, right? That's 10 boats for 1,000 people.
Yeah.
That's 10 boats for 1,000 people, right?
200 boats, aren't you? So
say that again.
You're looking at 200 boats to do it that way.
Anyway, I think what we need to do next week.
I think that would be doable, but
yeah.
The other side of it, Julius Caesar would have billed the Senate for the man and manpower cost to him as reparations for the amount of money spent. So the more he said in his records, in his report, I just built 800 ships. I want 50,000 denarii from you. They'd end up having to send him more money.
You're saying he's like a modern day corrupt politician? That's unbelievable. That is so wrong.
Corrupt politician. That's it.
And look what happened to him. Yeah.
The question is, which political party is he with? Right, let's move on. Republican or Democrat? Or Ross Perot's independent? He's been long gone. Right. Anything else from you, Will?
No, all good. I'll be in touch for next week's stuff.
Right, fair enough. Margaret?
No, I have spoken already. Thank you.
Oh, thank God for that. Right, Judith?
No, nothing more from me. Thank you.
Somebody just cackled in the background then. Right, Trina?
Well, I was going to ask you about the boats too. It's sort of, a trireme must be quite high above the water.
It's got to be because of it. Yeah.
So, would you fancy jumping off the top of one, like he said?
Oh my God!
He said they jumped off.
He did, yeah. No is the answer to that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You're going to drown. You're going to drown with the armor on. Well, actually, they didn't have a lot of armor at this stage. They were Marines, but with a heavy sword, a shield. Oh yeah.
And how did they get the horses off?
Aliens.
Yeah, okay. I've got
aliens.
Balloons.
Aliens.
Yeah.
Aliens. Yeah.
No, it's good. Yeah. Good questions like that are what make these kind of arguments start to falter. So.
And it would have been quite fairly shallow, wouldn't it? It would have been quite shallow.
Yes, it would.
Yeah, so the triremes at the top of your house, right? And you got to no.
It's not going to. I presume they'd bring smaller boats to transport them from the big ships.
Yeah.
Hang on a minute.
I don't know.
Hang on a minute. Yeah, go on.
Landing
craft. If like a little ferry boat from the big ship to the shore.
Yeah.
And Andy,
even so.
Sorry.
No, go on.
Andy, perhaps you can make a model of a trireme. Look at the shape of the boat, load it up with a lot of models, put in a little water tank, take a video, and say, "This is what I can prove would work
Scaled
with a
up
trireme."
Yeah.
Real horses, right? Okay, the horses, right? How do they get the horses off the boats? Oracles.
Well, you have ramps.
Down
You
a
have ramps
ramp.
running down. You
Why
have
not?
ramps, right?
Ramp.
You don't
Yeah.
use ramps.
Yeah, a trireme, which is 20 meters high, right? And then, yeah, okay, we'll do the ramp. Yeah, it's fine. Love it.
The horses would have been in the hold underneath.
Oh, so we'll drill a hole through the keel of the boat and we'll
But
just
they'd have a
How
little
did they
ramp.
get out of there?
They'd
Noah,
have a ramp coming from the lower deck.
Same way they got in.
it's Noah's Ark.
Yes.
Noah's Ark.
Yeah.
Oh, Drina, if any more,
Sorry.
No? You've done, Drina? Right. Okay. Anne, anything from you, darling?
No, thank you. I've enjoyed tonight.
Right. I'm looking forward to sending you one of you a goodies pack. I'm just looking forward to you opening it. Right. One of them's going to have a blow up rubber doll that we didn't use on the trip, but I'll send that to. I'll send that. Can you imagine? We'll send it to Will. Deal, have a knock on the door from the police at customs.
It won't
Andy,
pass customs.
Yeah, exactly. Andy, anything you want to say, love?
No, I'm good, thank you, mate. Interesting stuff.
Right. Yeah, it is, and it's still blooming 4 minutes past 10. On that note, folks, anyone else got anything else to say before we finish?
No.
Yeah, I did notice one thing, that on those timetables on that route they were saying, it was all GMT. That didn't exist then.
Yeah. I was wondering that.
But they had, right, a nuclear clock that doesn't lose time.
All right,
Okay.
goes both ways. That's fine.
Yeah. I people have been saying I've been going both ways all my life.
Your options open.
Keep my options open, exactly. Right. On that note, folks, I really enjoyed tonight. Michelle said I've been as high as a kite. And on that note, I'm going to say goodnight to Andy, Anne, Drina, Margaret, Will, and Judith. And we'll see you all next week, folks.
Yeah.
Good night, all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night, all.
Thank you.
Good
No,
night.
folks.
Night.
No,
Good night.
love. No, Judy.
Bye.
Judy. Oh, I'm Judy. I'm glad you're on tonight. Everything better?
Yeah, well, ish. They're getting there. Are you all right?
Oh, it's just yeah, obviously, things I haven't said tonight. It's just that I've had weird stomach pains for about 5 or 6 months, and I've just got to make sure that that's monitored and kept into touch. So I'm going to see my GP on Thursday. So yeah.
Oh, can I offer some advice?
Yes.
Don't eat McDonald's. It's not nutrition.
Well, the thing is actually, I have been starting to think like this anyway, and it's yeah, I've been getting that way. So yeah, it's not on dull ears, put it that way.
Yeah, it's difficult when you're on the road. It's difficult to find anything that's not rubbish, isn't it?
The thing is when I'm stopping and it's like, right, I'll do an hour. I'm feeling a bit I'm not tired, but I know I will be. So I get a coffee at McDonald's, right? But the coffees that they give you, it's just Michelle said to me that they're just too strong, and you're just thinking, is this all real coffee?
I don't know. Don't know if there's any unreal, is there? I don't know enough about it.
But all these additives and stuff, they probably, so.
Yeah, it is difficult, but
So
Take a packed lunch with
the answer is I'll send Michelle out before I do an acting gig. She can buy me a packed lunch and pour me a flask with loads of coffee. Job done.
all right. Well, take care.
Yeah, you take care. And obviously I'm on tomorrow evening, whatever. But you take care, and I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you.
I'm
Night,
glad
night.
things are better. Take care, Judith.
Oh,
Night. Bye bye.
Bye.
Night. Right, that's it, folks. I don't know if we had anybody online tonight. If we did, nothing's come through. So anyway, whoever gets the recording of this, then fair enough. And Michelle asked me how many recordings have I done live for my classes. So if we can estimate from the beginning of the pandemic, that's about sometimes we were doing about 5 or 6 a week, but if we averaged at least 2 a week, then that's 500 plus the extra stuff we used to do. We've done about 700 lives on YouTube, YouTube, Zoom, but because before that we did Skype, which wasn't as good. Anyway, so what we're going to do, I'm going to look at the chat box. Nothing in that chat box. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Nothing in that chat box. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Hiraeth, diolch yn fawr i chi, am mor i hyd, and